Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you. Happy Tuesday. It is Tournament Tuesday here on the stream. Silver today. I like silver. I think silver is a good combination of um good solid players that are semi-affordable. They're not cheap. But you can build a silver team for not as much as it takes to build a gold team. It's fun. And the players are a little bit more competitive, a little bit more I don't know what the word I'm looking for is because my brain is dead right now. Consistent is the word I'm looking for. We're off to a solid start today on the stream. The cards are a little bit more consistent than those bronze and iron cards, so if you put a really good silver team together, you can get some good stuff out of it. No longer need an armor leg to build it. Yeah, now it's just an armor leg. Fair. That's fair. Cheapest non-light silvers are at least 600, and any mission one. Yes, they're not cheap, but we'll see what we can do today. Try to help you guys out today and see what we can do to build your silver teams. To help you guys build your silver teams. I'm not building them for you. What's up, Bombers? What's up, everybody? Good morning, Rom. Good morning, NECJ. Good morning, DJoyce. Torgonius, it's good to see you. I haven't been a while. Pulling Chen Meng Wang in your starter pack, completed the live missions. Nice. So yeah, it's there's that new Wander. Have you guys seen this? This is not a terrible gold card. I'm interested to see next week what it's going to look like in gold. I haven't plugged it onto the team just yet. We've got some gold cards here. We got 10 more left. Wow. Couple solid gold cards here. We'll take a Marlin Bird. No missions yet. Maybe someday. 81 rated gold card. I don't see that one in gold at all off the top of my head. Ooh, there's a Torii Hunter. Silver card. Packs are a little bit kind of, lukewarm today. Lukewarm packs so far. Damn job expecting to do some work. It happens. I gotta start looking soon. There's a Kirby Yates. We got a Mac Wheaton here. This is the Bruins we're opening these packs with, so it's not the main team. They get built, their entire main team on this, well, I guess the Perfect League team on this gets built by packs. I don't think there's anything yet that's going to get added to that team so far. There's a Javi Baez. Man, the OHBL Cubs hope he opts out after this season. And he might. He's angry. He asked me for a trade this week. We got 3 packs left. Lots of gold today, guys. What's up, Mr. World? What's up, Bailey? Pulled a Pete Rose Mission Diamond today. Outstanding. I finished my Pete Rose last week. It's a pretty solid perfect card. Goodness, we're getting like a gold in every other pack right now. No diamonds. Couple historical golds. Let's see what the last pack with these guys has. It has nothing. Wow, that was a disappointing end of those packs. We'll open some more packs at the end with the decimals. Let's start today by looking at the card dump. So it's going to be some Excel stuff for you guys who are new to the stream. We're going to take a look at last week's, I believe it was last Monday, the card dump and the silver cards in that card dump. I haven't been able to get ratings for all of these cards. You're killing me, Cat. It's too early for your shenanigans. I haven't been able to get ratings for all of these cards. Let's go ahead and hide. Well, I'm not going to hide those. Zoom in. What happens if we zoom in? Can we see everything? Kind of. Good enough. Let's go like this. And then we can go like this. And now we can see everything we need to see. These were the pitchers. All the starting pitchers. I don't believe there were any relief pitchers dropped in silver last week. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not seeing too much usable. I did not get a new chair. I'm just sitting up very straight in this one so as not to fall over backwards. It is entirely possible that you guys will get to see me fall out of this chair this week. Your Perfect Pete is hitting 250 in his first season this year. Just wait. Yeah, he'll heat up. I promise. On Sunday, you got a ton of golds and silvers, but no diamonds or perfects. Yeah, it's been... I think I got a live perfect last week at some point. So the pitchers we got were Adam Lowen, 2006, 70 overall, 80 stuff, 79 movement, 32 control, which I'll be honest, he's a lefty that splits left. Kind of looks like he could be a potential bullpen piece, but not really sure. The 80 stuff, 79 movement is right kind of on the border of what I look for out of our ratings, but that 32 control is terrifying. I think it's a card that if it was a 69 rated card, it would be a monster bullpen card in bronze, but I think that here in silver, it's probably just not going to stack up. We got Bob Shirley and Paul Hartzell, who I haven't been able to see anything on yet. I haven't found them on the auction house. I haven't seen them in tournaments at all, so I don't know anything about them. We just froze again already. We're off to a fantastic start today. Danny Salazar is a guy with 105 stuff, 50 movement, 43 control, with a slight split versus right-handed hitters. Very good stuff. You'll see a lot of strikeouts here, but the 50 movement, 43 control is absolutely terrifying to me. This is a guy who's going to walk guys and let up home runs in silver, and I just don't think it's a card that's going to match up too well in our tournament formats right now. I could be totally wrong. Again, there's no science in this. It's just anecdotal, so keep that in mind. Grover Loudermilk is a card that looks interesting to me. I'm going to see if I can find this one for us on the auction house. He had an 89 stuff, 86 movement. The control of 21 is a little bit scary, so again, I think he's limited to bullpen action if you're using him, but I could see if you set him to never pitch around with this kind of stuff and movement combination, I could see him potentially being a stopper. He does have a right-handed split, so keep that in mind, but I could potentially see him being a stopper out of the bullpen. I just can't see Loudermilk being a starting pitcher with that kind of control just off the cuff. Tom Hume, 59 stuff, 67 movement, 72 control. Very little split for Tom Hume, but the ratings are just so low. I just don't know that this card's going to compete here at the silver level. It's a 74 rated card. Getting up into the kind of higher silver level stuff, Bill White with 56 stuff, 85 movement, 50 control. You got Jim O'Toole in there, who I just don't have data on yet. He's a left-handed pitcher, which is interesting, but the 56 stuff, 50 control, again, with the 85 movement, it's good movement. He's not going to let up too many home runs, but you're going to have a pretty high whip with this guy probably. You're going to want a really, really, really good defense behind him, because you're probably going to have to not pitch around very much, and he's not going to be striking guys out. I haven't seen him in tournaments at all yet. James Edwards, maybe borderline usable, 75 stuff, 72 movement, 45 control. Again, we're not digging too deep into these cards right now. Not a lot of scientific stuff. Who is that? White is a lefty, Earl Francis. I can see that. Yeah, and I mean, Earl Francis has had pretty good success too, so I'm not running comparisons. I think what I'm going to work on this week is being ready for the next card drop and being able to do like comparisons with current players for when those cards come down, but we will see. We'll see. That sounds like a lot of work. I am off at the stadium this week, so I will have a little bit of time to catch up on stuff. I worked all week last week, which it was a good week for the Travelers this week. 5-1 against a team that is absolutely destroying their division, the Frisco Rough Riders, the Rangers minor league AA team, who has like 9 of the top 20 Rangers prospects on the team, which isn't really saying much when you think about the Texas Rangers system at the current moment, but they were a team that was blowing away their division, and we took 5 out of 6 from them this week, which was pretty good. Hartzell data, 42, 71, 84 ground baller. Where we go? 42, 71, 84, 71, 84. Got it. Awesome. So 71 movement with 84 control, I could see that working out of the bullpen. I like the 84 control. You set him to pitch around all the time with that kind of movement. This is a card that I could see maybe being okay out of the bullpen, this Paul Hartzell card. So thanks for the data on Hartzell. Slight splits versus right. Slight versus right. That's a card that you could that could be a sneaky okay card out of the bullpen. I don't know what the cost on it is right now. How's Julio Rodriguez? Looks like he's from a different planet, guys. The guy is absolutely just. I don't even have words to describe. He shows up like he walks out of the clubhouse and he just looks different. than everybody else, and he's just built differently. He is his skills are absolutely awesome. He's super fast. His arm is a cannon. And he's got that swagger that you just don't see from a lot of guys in Double A. He made the whole team better. We only got to see 4 games because he went to the Futures game over the weekend. But man, does he look the part. I really don't think I'm going to get to see him for very long. I have a feeling he's going to be in AAA pretty soon, unless they decide they want to kind of slow it down with him a little bit. He is only 20 after all. He's a young kid, but he just looks different. Like, he looks like he's from a different planet than all the other guys out there. His baseball skills are just like, and when I say a different planet, I mean he looks like he comes from a planet where all they do is play baseball, and they do it better than we do on this planet, and that's where he learned his skills. A little bit of work in the field. They've had him playing left field. They've had him playing right field. His reads off the bat a couple times have looked a little bit not as polished as the rest of his game, but at the plate he is spectacular. On the base paths he's just different than everybody else. He's just awesome. He looks fantastic. I can't wait to see more of him when they come back home next week. And he's just an absolute joy. He seems like such an awesome person. He comes over to sign autographs and totally ignored the grown-ups and focused on the kids, and it cracked me up. I got off early one night last week, and I went and sat out in left field the night he was playing in left field. And in between pitches, he was sitting there talking to the kids out there like in a pirate voice. Like, so he's talking to the kids out in the left field bleachers like he's a pirate, and it was just cracking me up. He's just a hilarious kid with just superior baseball skills. He's going to be awesome. So if there's any Mariners fans in here, you've got a good one coming. We've got a good one coming up to the majors in the next couple of seasons. He is fun. I would, off on a tangent there. Thanks for the questions, though. I'm excited about him. If you can't tell. So here's our hitters. We got a couple second basemen, a couple first basemen, some outfielders. There's not a ton going on. There weren't a ton of silver cards added. Most of the cards added were of the bronze and iron variety last week. So that's where we're talking about Julio Rodriguez, LFC USA, number 3 prospect in baseball right now, number 2 prospect for the Mariners. He is spectacular. Let's see. So Prado, I got some data on Prado. 74 contact, 75 gap, 51 power, 47 ice, 73 avoid Ks. Not great defense. So Prado, and only at second base and first base this year for Prado. He's not, the 6-tool player that he was in bronze last season. I don't love the second base defense. I can probably live with the first base defense if his bat plays up, but he's a 73 rated card. I don't know that his bat's going to play up. 74, 75 gap with 73 avoid Ks is not awful. I could see it being a decent on-base percentage card with a little bit of gap, the gap power, maybe a solid OPS going on for Prado as well, but a 49 second base rating with, I don't have all of the ratings in here, but his range wasn't super high. I just think there's better options at second base. So if he's going to play, he's going to have to play at first base. And there's some pretty seriously good bats here in silver at first base, so I don't know that he's going to get a lot of play there. Walker, I don't have any data on. He's another 73 rated card. Dan Dreesen, 73 contact, 68 gap, 59 power, 59 eye, 50 eye with righty splits for Dreesen, a 44 first base rating for defense for him. Trey Mancini, 74. This is a 2019 Trey Mancini. 74 contact, 67 gap, 61 power, 58 eye, 56 avoid Ks with splits versus lefties. 75 first base rating is decent. 45 right field rating is okay for Mancini. It's nothing to be super excited about in the field. Steve Braun, Jose Vidro is one I'm really interested in looking at. If anybody has data on Vidro, I'd love to hear it. It's second base isn't empty here in silver, but I'm looking for an upgrade at some point in the near future. Harry Shumpert also at second base that I just couldn't find data on. Balboni still rakes in silver, perhaps You won't see Julio next week mostly. Yeah, he's with the Olympics next week. So yeah, so it'll be 3 more weeks before I get to see him again. Hopefully he comes back to us. I don't think he's very long for us. Really, I'll be totally honest. I will say that his reads on the balls a couple times definitely need a little bit of work. I don't know that he's quite ready defensively for the majors, but he's not that far off. He has good recovery skills when he does have a bad read because he is so fast. But he misplayed one single into a double at one point, and there were a couple that he had to like scramble to recover on because of bad breaks off the bat. But that was the only thing I have to say bad about him. He did get thrown out at third to end an inning trying to stretch a double into a triple once too this week. So yeah, they say never make the third out at third base. So we'll see. He's already batting second for us, and he really just made the whole team better. I got nothing on Luke Scott. I do have Scooter Gennett. He's got a 45 second base defensive rating. I was really hoping for this card to be better when I saw his name. Scooter Gennett was a player that I really liked there in the mid 2000 teens, but this is what we got. A solid 82 contact with 60 gap power, 56 power. The 42 I and 59 avoid Ks, I think that combination kind of drags him down a little bit. I don't think he's going to be terribly usable here in silver at the moment. Matt Diaz with 77, 61, 61, 53, 49 across the board. Splits versus left, 54 left field, multiple positions, 53 left field, 43 right field. I'm going to be honest, guys. There were some cards in bronze and iron that I thought could play in those tournaments, but I don't feel like there's too many silver cards besides a couple of the pitchers and then Vidro if I see them. You missed him in Everett, got to catch him in Tacoma. Yeah, I really think he'll be there soon. I'm not seeing too many hitters here that excite me for silver this week. I'm going to be totally honest. I don't see too many of these cards being very competitive cards, but we'll see over time. We'll see if they start showing up now that people have seen the ratings on them. I'm going to keep my eye out for the rest of these cards and see maybe if they look better. And then, next time we talk silver, maybe we'll talk about them. But it's a pretty packed stream anyway. So those are your new cards from your July card dump. We're going to be done with that for now and move on to your live updates. There weren't a lot. There weren't a lot of guys that we lost. These are the guys that we lost. So we're starting with the silver guys that went up to gold. I'm going to ignore the guys that went down to bronze because whatever. Maybe we'll look at them real quick. We didn't lose a lot. Not a lot of players that get used very much. Will Smith was getting used a little bit, but he moved up to gold. He moved up from a 79 to an 80. So Will Smith is no longer available to us here in silver. It was Stroman, Posey, Emmanuel Clace, Colin McHugh moved up, Richard Rodriguez, Devin Williams. So a lot of relief pitchers here, moving up from silver to gold. Max Fried moves up from a 73 to an 84. Will Smith, also Atlanta, moves up from a 79 to an 80. We talked about him already. Ian Anderson moves up. He wasn't getting used much. And then you got Brantley Altuve, Sean Manaea, Adalberto Mondesi, Dylan Cease, Gary Sanchez, Loziga, and Jordan Montgomery. Montgomery got a little bit of use from what I saw out of the bullpen here in silver, but not too much. Other than that, I don't really think we have to worry about too much of the guys we lost this week in live. I don't think we lost too many live cards, which is expected. We don't use too many live cards in silver anyway. At this point, we're using mostly historical cards anyway because the live cards just don't tend to match up that well here at this level. And so that's, come on, XL. So I'm not surprised that we're not losing too much. All right, there we go. Let's see, who went down? Anybody drop down from silver to bronze? Holy smokes, this could be lots of guys went from silver to bronze. We saw them come down, we saw them drop down. Rizzo was probably one of the bigger ones that we lost. We lost Eugenio Suarez, dropped down to bronze this month. Let's see, and I don't know. We got Corbin Barnes. Corbin is a little bit of a loss. I know he got a little bit of play. He might be getting used in bronze now. Martin Perez, Mark Melanson. It's a lot of guys. Verdugo went down to bronze, and we saw him last week. So we saw most of these guys within the last couple weeks. And so I'm not going to focus too much on the guys who went down. So let's go ahead and clear that filter, and then we'll go to silver. Let's go. Here, let's look at the guys who came down from, and we'll grab the new guys too. So these are new guys in silver. That's it, for real. Not a lot of new silver cards. Hunter Harvey and Nestor Cortez show up as silver cards. Both of them are pitchers. We got 91, 52, 59 on Hunter Harvey and 78, 54, 49 on Nestor Cortez. Not sold on either of them being terribly usable. I think that the Harvey looks slightly more usable, but a 70 and a 73 rated card, probably not going to get too much play here in silver. Dropping down from, let's sort this like this, so that they're kind of near each other. There we go. So we got Alonso dropping down from gold to silver. Usable, 58 contact, 52 gap, 90 power, 37 avoid Ks, probably not too much. Unless you just really need a home run. Let's see. Jose Abreu at first base, 62 contact, 66 gap, 78 power, 45, 42. Not great. I could see Alonso being a solid home run hitter. That 37 avoid K, but a 62I makes up for that 37 avoid K just a little bit. So we'll get to see if he's on the list at all. He did get 637 plate appearances. So he did qualify as a first baseman over the last, I've been pulling for a week, a little over a week now. I started the day before the Iron Stream last week. So he does have enough plate appearances to qualify. We'll see where he shows up. Home runs could be a thing for Pete Alonso for sure. Luke Voit with his 55 defense at first base, 38, 60I. Similar numbers, just slightly lower. A little bit more contact for Voit than for Alonso. Really similar numbers. The Alonso, to me, looks slightly better. I think the 3 points of power with the 2 points of I is going to help Alonso, but I could see them. They're super similar. 474 plate appearances, so we won't get to see Luke Voit. We might be able to look into him here in just a little bit. Catcher-wise, Wilson Contreras came down from gold to silver. 65 defense, I think, is going to... I don't have the catcher rating here. Only 299 plate appearances. Let's see if we can find him. I'm curious what his catcher ability is. Catcher ability of 49, which I think is going to keep a lot of people away from him. He did get 300 plate appearances, so a little bit of use for him. If anybody wants to see him after we go through the catcher list, let me know, and I'll see what I can find for Contreras. Center fielder Randy Arozarena drops from an 80 to a 76, which makes me sad because I kind of prospected his cards in the fall, and I was hoping for good stuff. He just hasn't quite produced this year to what we were hoping for. And he's a little bit older too, so I probably, I didn't prospect too much, thankfully. 59 contact, 63 gap, 68 power, 57 I, 36 avoid Ks. I just don't... the 83 defense is interesting to me in center field, but I think there's probably better options out there. 130 plate appearances. People don't like him too much. Closer Alex Reyes drops from an 81 to a 79. 109 stuff, 69 movement, 39 control. The 69 movement's a little bit scary to me. With the 39 control, you're going to want to set him to not pitch around much because he's going to get into walk trouble. But I think the 69 movement could get hit pretty hard here at silver. I think that it's questionable reliability there. I think he could let up some walks and some home runs, so Reyes doesn't look great to me. We got Austin Meadows in left field, who's a 55, 74, 77. 74 gap and 77 power is an interesting combination. 59 I, 37 avoid Ks, not so much. Did get 700 plate appearances for him. For big split to right. You have Trevor May. So we've got, what is it? Big split to right. 107, 44, 61. I don't know that card's terribly usable either. That's a little bit concerning. That big split to righties for Trevor May. Maybe a specialist. 107 stuff, 44 movement, 61 control. The 61 control is a little bit scary with that movement for Trevor May, but we'll see. We'll see. Austin Adams will qualify. 200 innings pitched for Austin Adams. Got a little bit of play. 145 stuff, 70 movement, 37 control. Now, this is a guy that I could see being usable. Set him to not pitch around, and the 70, it's not much higher than the 69, but good stuff. He got enough innings to qualify, so we'll see what Austin Adams is putting up today. Pierce Johnson, 155-50. Terrifying movement control ratings for me for Pierce Johnson. Just don't think he's going to play here. Relief pitcher Chris Martin, 61-65, 94 control. Good control, decent movement. Maybe as a pitch-around pitcher for Chris Martin. We got Zach Britton dropping down, 80-77, 53. Maybe him and Paul Fry, both potentially usable. 80-77, 53 for Britton. 98-75, 44 for Paul Fry, dropping from an 80 to a 79. Let's see. We got Julio Urias, who's got that bronze. He's got a very bronze-ish rating stack here. 85 stuff, 48 movement, 72 control. I really think that 48 movement's going to get hit too hard here at Silver to be terribly usable. Zach Gallen getting a little bit of use. 90 stuff, 54 movement, 58 control. With 300 innings pitched, somebody's using some Zach Gallen, so we'll see if we get any good data on him. Not much higher on the movement scale than that Julio Urias with lower control. So the fact that he's getting used a little bit is interesting to me. We'll see what he looks like, and maybe we'll be able to check out some of these other guys. 77, 58, 65 for Chris Bassett. Yunjin Ryu with a 68, 54, 81. Very good control. Again, lower movement. I'm really curious to see what we're getting out of Zach Gallen here. That movement just seems a little bit low to me to be competitive here in Silver. But who knows? Maybe I'm totally wrong. And then we got a bunch of shortstops who just don't play good enough defense at this level, I don't think, to really be competitive. We did get 1,400 Tim Anderson plate appearances and 900 Marcus Semien plate appearances, so we'll see what their overall numbers look like. Gleyber Torres got 28 plate appearances, so we'll see what they look like. Meadows always surprised you on your regular team? Interesting. Good to know. I do think that gap plus power ratings is pretty interesting. I think the eye is right on the border of making it a useful card. And down here in Silver, it's I could see the Austin Meadows hitting. I could absolutely see that card being interesting. So we'll see what kind of numbers we get from him. Let's dive in, shall we? Here we go. This is the stuff you guys are here for, not me rambling about Julio Rodriguez or other stuff. Speaking about going off tangent, can somebody figure out a way to get Connor McDavid out of Edmonton, please? Please. What are they doing up there? I don't know if there's any hockey fans in the chat, but I am apoplectic about Edmonton trading for Duncan Keith this morning. What a disaster. What a disaster of an organization. Unbelievable. Sorry, we got off topic there for a minute. Let's get back to it. Roberto Perez, your number 2 rated defensive catcher. I know he gets a lot of use as a defensive catcher. 7th this time. He's the 5th all time. Offensively, we had 10 qualifiers this week, so you see your 10 qualifiers right here. It was Petway, Roseboro, Troop, Austin Hedges, Bob Boone, Roberto Perez, James McCann, Charlie Moore, and Mike Piazza. Those are your 10 qualifiers for this week with 600 or more plate appearances. Perez is grading out number 10 mostly because he is really bad offensively. 164 batting average, a 258 slugging percentage, which would be a pretty bad batting average, let's be honest. A 513 OPS, a 238 weighted on base average, and a negative .39 WAR per 600 plate appearances. This is an unusable offensive card. I mean, if you really just want to go all in on defense, then I totally get it. But I think you can get cards higher up that are a little bit better defensively that aren't this bad offensively. What is up, Cavicom? Good to see you. It's been weeks. I hope you're doing well. Bring McDavid to Boston? Seriously. I would die. You're on a part-time kidnap service calling you. Awesome. No, I'm not going to do that. Cavicom, good to see you, man. I really hope you're doing well. How's your streams going? Number 9 is James McCann, who is not as good defensively, not very, the 66 catcher ability. It's really, you've got Hedges and then a little bit of Petway, and then you got Perez up there defensively. And then there's that second tier of catchers, and McCann is 6th defensively, 8th offensively. He still isn't very good offensively. Only 762 plate appearances for him. You've been running Perez versus lefties, and he's slugging 291 for you. So there's that. So we get an extra 30 points of slugging versus lefties. So there you go. Solid. which would be an okay batting average. James McCann at number 9. Again, not great offensively and not great defensively. I'm not surprised that this card's getting very little use down here in silver. He's just mediocre defensively. Gives you a little bit of power, 12 home runs per 600, which is a little bit below Perez. No, right around Perez home run wise. Batting average is at least over 200, which is a solid 220. 268 on base percentage, 324 slugging, OPS weighted on base average WAR, all pretty low. I think we can live without James McCann in our lineup, and we're not going to spend too much time on him. Your number 1 rated defensive catcher is Austin Hedges. He is number 1 in runners thrown out percentage, number 3 in stolen bases against per game, number 3 in catcher ERA this week, number one across the board in runners thrown out and stolen bases against per game. Over the course of this week, 2,621 plate appearances has him your 5th most used catcher. Again, purely in there for defensive purposes. He isn't much better than Perez offensively. He is better than Perez defensively. I like Hedges as like a defensive replacement, but I really think that once you get up to silver, it makes it a little bit more difficult to run too many positions as all defense, and catcher is one of those. There's some catchers you can hit. There's some catchers you can get on base up here. It's not like bronze where the difference between the hitting catchers and the non-hitting catchers isn't that big. Up here, I think there's some guys you can get in your lineup. I like Austin Hedges as a defensive replacement, but he's terrible with the bat. Both him and Perez are just basically unusable offensively. And so there's that. He is very good defensively, but 47 runs created per 600 is atrocious. 32 walks, 180 strikeouts are both really bad. A little bit of power for Hedges, 15 home runs per 600. But the rate stats are just ugly. 193 batting average, 242 on base percentage, a 310 slugging, which is still slightly better than Perez. It comes down to how much you value catcher ability. If this is your be-all, end-all for catcher, then you can ignore everything I say about catchers being able to hit, because Hedges is going to be your number 1 offensive catcher if you absolutely need that catcher ability in there. Again, I know some people swear by, like, 3 points of catcher ability is huge for some people. I'm not necessarily there. I think I do have Hedges on the team right now. I can't remember what I'm running out there right now. I do not actually have him on the team. Hedges is not on my team right now. So he is very good. He's a very good defensive catcher with a very, very good catcher rating as well. So you're not going to have the pass balls that you will with some other guys. But again, you're going to get some home runs out of him every now and then. Maybe a 6 or 7 hitter for Hedges. He's pretty scary offensively, in my opinion. You've been running high catcher ability for weeks with very little success. Switched to Roseboro and things have turned around. We'll talk about Roseboro when we get there. Charlie Moore is pretty bad defensively. 53 arm, 56 ability, 53 catcher rating, but he's 5th offensively among our catchers. And if you can get him in there versus just lefties, I think he can probably be just a little bit better. He does have slight splits versus lefties. 743 plate appearances this week, 2,600 all time. He does grade out 5th offensively all time out of 29 catchers too, so keep that in mind. I have not reset the silver stuff. The silver tournaments, because they just don't kick off that fast. And so this is literally all time from the start of Perfect Team 22 for Charlie Moore. He is grading out at number 5 offensively out of all of these 29 qualifying catchers for all time. But again, even a 2,600 plate appearance at that point is a pretty small sample size. So just keep that in mind. 3rd in average, 265, 323 on base percentage, which isn't awful, 344 slugging percentage, which is pretty good, 667 OPS, and a 300 weighted on base average. But again, you take your lumps defensively with Charlie Moore for sure. He's 9th in runners thrown out, 9th in stolen bases against per game, and 9th in catcher ERA for him as well. So not great defensively, but if you want a little bit of offense, Charlie Moore may be a card that you can get your hands on. In tournament environment, you worry about catcher ability less because of the short time frame and random. Yeah, I totally get that, Will King. I think that's a valid concern. Done a lot better since you added Perez to go with Troop. No idea what that says or means. Yeah, there are ebbs and flows in tournament play for sure. This is not the Nesson Mad Fisherman, and get him out of my chat. Not a fan. Bob Boone at number 6. Bob Boone is right below those other guys. The Perez and the Austin Hedges defensively, slightly below them, pretty significantly below them if we're going to be totally honest. There's definitely a pretty clear second tier of defensive catchers here. Boone gives you a little bit of offensive value that they don't, namely in the form of a little bit of base running. 94% stolen base percentage, guys. Maybe you want to pump those numbers up. You don't. Let's be totally honest. 60 runs created per 600 puts him at number 6 for Bob Boone. He's grading out 6th offensively, 4th defensively, but a 253 average is a little bit better than those other guys. A 320 on base percentage at least. 303 slugging, which is kind of sad. 623 OPS, a 284 weighted on base average. So those numbers get a little bit bad too. 1900 plate appearances for Bob Boone. I think the fact that he's not, a lot better than the really good defensive catchers tells me that he's probably you might be better off just going with Hedges than Boone. I think that with Hedges or Perez than Boone, just because he's still not giving you a lot of offense. While the defense is a pretty big drop as well for Bob Boone right now to haunt Charlie Moore Outdoors haunts you wherever you go. What's up, you Karen? Thanks for stopping by. You don't understand why people watch that show and how Orlando Cabrera is on like every week because he probably needs money. And it's I'm not a big fan. Thankfully, I don't live or have Nesson. I don't live in New England anymore, so I don't have to deal with the Charlie Moore Outdoors. And when I watch the Red Sox and Bruins games, all I get is I don't even get the commercials for them anymore because all I get is a commercial break in progress. Not a fan. Number 5 is Mike Piazza, who is... let's just not play him defensively, guys. If you're going to play Piazza, he's going to be your designated hitter. Is he good enough? Is he a good enough hitter to be your designated hitter? Well, I don't know. That's up to you guys. I'm still working on getting a DH thing back in since I redid the program, but we'll see. 406 slugging is pretty solid over 700 plate appearances. A 748 OPS is okay. At 335 weighted on base average, I really think there's probably better bats out there than Mike Piazza. So I don't know that he's very good as far as a designated hitter. I know he's unusable as a catcher, and I wouldn't use him. Number 1 in home runs among catchers. I don't know, guys. I just can't see putting him on my team. MDC needs the money to split a domestic pitcher with the fans and old Sosh reference. Got it. Interesting. Teddy, are you on Sosh? I don't know if I knew that. Buddy Rozar at number 4. I like Buddy Rozar. He's a good combination of defense and offense, grading out 3rd defensively, 7th offensively. Right around Boone defensively. I actually think he's a little bit better offensively than Boone versus lefties. I like his avoid K contact, a little bit of power. You get a little bit of power from Rozar as well. 241 average, 306 on base percentage, solid slugging percentage at 328, 634, 286. This is a card I can get behind as a defensive replacement and as a backup catcher, or even as a catcher versus lefties. I think he's who I'm running out there versus lefties, which might be why his numbers are a little bit low right now. But I think Rozar is a solid option as a catcher versus lefties. Obviously going to be a little bit worse versus righties, but you take what you can get, and he's definitely right there in that tier with Boone, while providing you a little bit more offense than Boone gives, with with pretty solid defensive skills too. Again, you're looking at like 14 points of catcher ability behind Hedges. So if you really, really want the defense, then Hedges is still the way to go. But I think Rosar is a good compromise between defense and offense, especially versus left-handed pitching. So he comes in here at number 4. I like him as you use him in, as long as you're using him in ways that make him useful, if any of that made sense. Number 3 is John Roseboro, who can hit a little bit versus righties. He's definitely third tier defensively. He's grading out 8th defensively, but grading out 3rd offensively. Number 1 in batting average, number 3 in on-base percentage, 3rd in slugging, 3rd in OPS, a 314 weighted on-base average. So obviously not quite Mike Piazza numbers, but pretty good numbers for a catcher who can play a little bit of defense, right? I like Roseboro versus righties. Roseboro and Rosar have been a pretty solid complement for me in silver as a righty-lefty platoon. For the format, obviously defense is a little bit lower for Roseboro, but you're getting a little bit more offensively out of him too. So take for that what you will. I know some people love the defense and really, really need the defense, and that's fine. I think you can win tournaments that way. I like to get a little bit of offense. I really, I'm going to be honest, when I'm watching games on TV, I enjoy watching pitchers duels. When I'm watching my team play and out of the park, I don't like losing 2-1, 1-0 all that much. So which doesn't work out great for me in my online leagues, but I try to score some runs here in tournament play. And I think Roseboro, much like Rosar, is a solid kind of compromise between defense and offense as well. So Roseboro comes in at number 3. Number 2 is Petway, which means Quincy Troop's going to be number 1. Cool. Petway doesn't have big splits. Petway's grading out 4th offensively and 5th defensively. And I think he's a super usable card here in the format too. You can see he's getting the most use out of any catcher. He has a little bit of split, but not a bunch. I think he's playable versus lefties and righties, largely because the 78 avoid Ks with the 65 contact is going to get him on base. He's going to provide you seriously valuable base running. Okay catcher ability, but a very good catcher arm and a very good catcher rating. You can ignore the catcher ERA at 3.56. I know it's got him at number 1, but again, that takes into account kind of the innings at first base and in right field as well. So Petway comes in here at number 2. 257 average, 322 on base percentage. Number 1 in net steals at 43. I don't think there's too much of a surprise there. Rosar looks interesting platoon with a nice backup D. Yeah, I like him. I'm still mad at Rosar for retiring in the bingo save a couple weeks ago. Nice. He was responsible for you winning. Good. Maybe. Yep. I gotcha. Bingo ball. Karen, I need to stop by and watch you sometime. I'm not usually available on Friday nights though. Sadly. Bruce Petway at number 2. Steals, pretty good on base percentage. The steals make it a little bit better. He's definitely on that tier with the, that 3rd tier. I would put him on the 3rd tier of defensive catchers. I think you have the live guys, Perez and Hedges at number 1 and number 2. And then that 2nd level, I think you've got the Rosar and the there was one other guy, Boone. They're on that 2nd level. And then I think Petway is pretty firmly in that 3rd level. I know the arm probably puts him right at the top of that level, but he's down here with like the, with the Roseboro and stuff like that defensively, while giving you pretty solid offense to go along with it. I like him at number 2. It's a fantastic card. And also has the ability to play right field and first base, which if you're running him as a platoon, allows you to do interesting things platoon-wise at other positions as well. Number 1 is Quincy Troop. Rating out 7th defensively, but again, 73 ability is right there with some of the other guys. A 65 arm, 76 catcher rating for him. 7th in defensively, 2nd offensively for Troop, right behind Piazza. 7th in average, 2nd in on base percentage, 2nd in slugging, 2nd in OPS, 2nd in weighted on base average. Very good rate stats for Quincy Troop at this point. Very little split. You got 3 points of contact, 3 points of gap, 2 points of power, 2 points of I, and 1 point of avoid K. So he can play every day for you. And then, you know, if he can make Petway like a straight backup utility guy, if you want to go that route. And then, oh, I'm looking on the wrong day. What? You stream on Saturdays? Gotcha. I'm not usually available on Saturdays either, unfortunately, or evenings for that matter. I don't really watch Twitch on the evenings. Net steals, he's 4th in net steals at 3.25. Not a reason I'd put him in there, but at least he's going to give you not negative base running. Top 5 in strikeouts, top 3 in walks, and 77.72 runs created per 600 plate appearances for Quincy Troop. I think you have a lot of options here at catcher. I really do. I like that second tier. Defensively, I'm still running a Rosar and Roseboro platoon at catcher. I think that if you can afford the Negro League guys, the Quincy Troop or the Bruce Petway, I think they're fantastic options at the top of the list as well. But I think you can go all in on defense too with the Perez or the Hedges or even the Bob Boone or the Rosar's kind of an all in on defense card too, depending on what you want to do. I could absolutely see like a Petway / Rosar in there as like as your backup defensive catcher and just letting Petway play every day, or even Troop playing every day with. I just think there's a lot of options, which is something that I really like about Silver, is that you start seeing options here as opposed to like the 1 or 2 cards that are pretty clearly better than all the other cards that you see down in Bronze and Iron, I think. So those are your catchers. We're going to do first baseman, and then I'm going to go refill my coffee. Been on for what, 45 minutes already? I think an hour is a good time to refill my coffee. First baseman in Silver this week, we had eventually. Processor just got loud. There we go. We had 14 qualifiers at first base this week. Vic Sire comes in at number 10. He's not a guy that qualified in the top 10 of plate appearances, but what do we have here? Sire's grading out 9th defensively at first base and 8th offensively. A 231 batting average is pretty low. All of his rate stats are a little bit low for first base here at Silver too. 329 on base percentage, 413 slugging, 743 OPS, 330 weighted on base average, and a 214 WAR for Vic Sire. Johnny Pauls, where's my vodka? Sadly, I don't drink anymore. You're on Petway and Troop, Teddy. That is an expensive catcher position at Silver. And while I think that is a fantastic option, that's not a cheap option at catcher for sure. Pitlack must not be as good at catcher as you assumed. Interesting. Let's see what we got on him. I know that Pitlack is a guy that we had looked at one point. So let me see if we can find him. I only got 124 plate appearances on him over the last week, so he's not getting used all that much, but we're seeing a 321 average, 379 slugging, 379 on base percentage, 367 slugging, 746 OPS. All of those stack up pretty well against the other guys up there. 48 walks, 53 strikeouts is solid. 4 WAR would be pretty close to number 1, and 85 runs created for Pitlack. Let's check that card out and see if we can find one. There we go. 68 contact, 53 gap, 86 avoid Ks with 76 catcher ability. So he's right there in that, high end of the third tier there defensively. The arm's a little bit low, I think, at 49. But, you take what you can get here at Silver. Pretty big splits versus lefties. Maybe an interesting platoon option versus lefties, which we were looking at, knocked out of that Silver tournament. We were looking at, what was it, Rosar as our platoon against lefties? Rosar pretty clearly better defensively. Offensively, I could see Pitlack being slightly better. Maybe even significantly better than Buddy Rosar. Offensively. Let's see if we can't get a comparison going on here. Compare player. Versus lefties, Rosar. Obviously, Rosar's a little higher in the avoid Ks and a little bit higher in the power as well. I think one of the, you do get a little bit of base running out of Pitlack too. So I don't think the Pitlack card's unusable by any stretch. Just didn't get used much in the tournaments that I was in here for silver over the last week or so. So that's what we're seeing for him. So solid catch on him, I think. Where's the line where catcher ability has a positive effect on defense or pitch framing? There's a lot of great bats with low catcher ability ratings, but how much do you give up to play them? That's a really good question, Chaston. I have not, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I haven't done anything significantly scientific on that. So I'm going to let the chat kind of answer that question if they want. I think that there's definitely a line where it hurts, but there's definitely a line at the top where I think it can become overkill. So, I mean, there's a potential for like the Hedges defense to just be overkill at the silver level, I think. But, it's... you can answer for a franchise, but not perfect team. Yeah, so perfect team runs a little bit different. Pitlack can be done for cap turnings with a 73. Agree. Catcher bats 3 or 4 times per game, but is on the field for 27 outs, which is a fair assessment to Torgonius because he's out there for the whole game, we assume, as well. So I think that it's important, and I don't make it the be-all, end-all for my team, as you can see with me running the platoon on the Rizar and Roseboro platoon out there. But I think that it definitely helps. It'll definitely make your entire pitching staff better, right? So I can't speak super intelligently to that. Like I said, I do a lot of numbers stuff. I don't do a lot of real scientific in-depth stuff, though. Cyrus got splits versus lefties. 58 contact, 48 avoid Ks. 84 power, 79 I. Splits versus righties, I should say, not versus lefties. My bad. So Vic Sire is right up there as one of the, the power hitters, but not great defensively. And the avoid K's contact combination is going to keep his batting average pretty low. He comes in at number 10. Number 9 is Goldschmidt, who's got pretty heavy lefty splits. Rating out 6th offensively, 12th out of 14 defensively for Goldschmidt. The range is low. The error is low. The 52 first base rating is okay. He's a 75-inch tall guy. Hits versus lefties. Oh, and we didn't go over splits. So right now the batters are sitting at about 49% righty, 31% lefty, and 19% switch. Pitchers right now, 96% right-handed starting pitchers right now, so keep that in mind. You probably want to focus your efforts on right-handed batters or versus right-handed batters for the format, because not only are we at 96% right-handed starting pitchers, we're at 64% right-handed relief pitchers as well. So not a lot of good left-handed pitching, or not a lot of in-use left-handed pitching here in silver right now. So Goldschmidt loses a lot of his usefulness because of that, because he's just not going to play that often if you're platooning him, and he's not going to be that great against right-handed pitching. He comes in at number 9, 12th defensively, 6th offensively overall for Goldschmidt, with a 262 average, 338 on base percentage, 423 slugging, 760 OPS, and a 336 weighted on base average. So the offensive numbers okay for Goldschmidt, but there's probably better options out there. And again, he's going to have limited usefulness because of his heavy versus lefty splits. Number 8 is Whitey Lockman. He's versus righty splits. 1,500 plate appearances. He was your 7th most used all time. 255 batting average, grading out 12th offensively, but 2nd defensively. 255 batting average, 332 on base percentage are both 8th. He's outside the top 10 in all the other rate categories, though, in slugging, OPS, weighted on base average, and he's 10th in WAR. Does play only first base. Plays it reasonably well. He's, a good defensive first baseman. A little bit of base running, not much. I wouldn't even consider that really any base running. Not a lot of power either. Just 12 home runs per 600. for Whitey Lockman, and he's 12th out of 14 in runs created per 600 at 69. I really kind of want a little bit more offense out of my first baseman than what Whitey Lockman is giving people right now. The 73 avoid Ks with the 81 contact is helping his average out a little bit, but not that much. And as a 77 rated card, I think that we probably have better options at first base. Number 7 is Buck O'Neil, grading out number 1 defensively at first base, but grading out 11th offensively, sadly. This is a card that I keep really wanting to like. He does have slight splits versus left-handed pitching. You got 2 points of contact, 7 points of gap, 4 points of power, 2 points of I, and 2 points of avoid Ks. After a certain point, the bad D doesn't make them worse. Let's see, as high as possible. Personal threshold is 65, so you kind of want 65 or higher for the catcher. Yeah, that gets a little bit rough finding catchers. Catcher is not deep in online leagues from what I've seen. Dan Wilson, 98 Yankees, had a DH playing. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks you, Karin, for discussing that stuff in chat. Much appreciated. What are you doing? Hey. 1 second. Oi. Boy, don't ever have kids, guys. So yeah, Buck O'Neil. You know, the slugging is low, the batting average is low. It's a good on-base percentage, but it's a little bit empty because he's not an elite base runner by any stretch. It's a very walk-heavy on-base percentage as well, due to it being a high I, kind of lowish avoid K contact combination. This is a card that I really, really want to like. I just can't get behind it. I've tried him out, and I'm not in love with this card. Good defensively though, but only plays first base. That's Buck O'Neil at number 7. Number 6 is Ryan Zimmerman, who's got pretty heavy lefty splits. Number 14 defensively, he's the worst defensive first baseman on our list today. Number 1 offensively out of all of these first basemen, which puts him at number 6. Now, again, keep in mind, versus lefties, so he's not going to get to play all that often. And when he is playing against those right-handed pitchers, he's going to be okay, but not great. 89 contact versus 76, 72 gap, so 14 points of gap, 14 points of power, 12 points of I, 13 points of avoid Ks. This is the historical player of the month, Ryan Zimmerman. 96% right-handed pitching, guys, which is just ludicrous to me. It's just crazy how much right-handed pitching there is in silver right now. Owning a cat is a prerequisite for being a streamer. Is it? Kids technically are not a part of it. He's going to try it again. Watch this. He's about to do it again. Or he's going to come right through the middle, and you're going to get to see him. So again, Zimmerman is going to be great versus lefties. Great bat off the bench against the, on the rare occasion you face a left-handed pitcher out of the bullpen, which is useful. I like him as a backup first baseman or in a platoon with a right-handed hitting first baseman. He just absolutely mashes left-handed pitching. And if you can live with the bad defense once every, 10 games? Once every 100 or so games, then you can live with that. So there is, sounds like at best a platoon DH versus lefties. Yeah, again, this is kind of a card that I really wanted to get behind, but the lack of defense and the fact that there's so many right-handed pitchers right now, it makes it a little bit hard to platoon. And it helps that, maybe you can get, maybe it's at the point where you need to add another bullpen piece or something like that. He'll mash lefties. But that's about it. Number 5 is Todd Helton, who hits right-handed pitching, 5th offensively, 8th defensively for Helton, putting him at number 5 overall. 84 runs created per 600 for him, 4th in average, 7th in on-base percentage, 3rd in slugging, 4th in OPS and weighted on-base average, and 5th in WAR. Just under 1,000 plate appearances on Helton, so still a little bit of a small sample size for him. Middle of the pack defensive first baseman, middle of the pack offensive first baseman. Mid-teens in home runs, was successful the 2 times he's stolen bases and solid. Avoids strikeouts. Doesn't walk too much. So he's got a good batting average, but a lowish on base percentage for a first baseman. He comes in at number 5. Number 4 is Ben Taylor, your most used first baseman ever and this week. 13,000 plate appearances, which is like double the number 2 guy right now. He's grading out 4th offensively, 7th defensively, also plays some right field, plays some left field. It looks like almost all of his plate appearances are listed as a first baseman, which is pretty clearly his best defensive position. I could see him being almost usable in right field. A little deficient in left field, though. Solid versus righty splits. You got 11 points of contact, 10 points of gap, 3 points of power, 8 points of eye, and 9 points of avoid Ks. He is going to hit very, very well versus right-handed pitching. Maybe not the power numbers you want out of your first baseman necessarily, but a 293 batting average, a 353 on-base percentage, both are pretty solid numbers, especially since it's not a walk-driven on base percentage, and he's got a little bit of speed to go along with it. 3rd in base running, although the stolen base percentage is a little low, so you might want to be a little bit careful with him there. 5th in OPS, 5th in weighted on base average, while playing pretty good defense at first base. He is short at 71 inches, so barely taller than me, and I am not tall. So Ben Taylor comes in at number 4. He is a proven winner at 25% of his points. I like his numbers versus righties. If you're going to platoon him, he's going to be the strong side of the platoon, play a lot of games out there at first base for you. And Ben Taylor is a very, very useful card at first base, one that I do not currently have on my team, I don't think. Number 3 is 2006 snapshot Nick Johnson, who's your 9th most used player this week. Number 1 in on-base percentage for Nick Johnson. He's grading out 6th defensively and 7th offensively. 2.58 WAR per 600 plate appearances puts him 4th. 82 runs created is a little bit low at 7th among first basemen. And the fact that it is a very, very walk-heavy on-base percentage leads me to some concern because he's not a very good base runner. I mean, he's a good base runner, but the speed's going to hold him back just a little bit. Again, that number 1 on-base percentage at 354 belies a 240 batting average, a 399 slugging percentage, both numbers of which are pretty low among first basemen, but a 753 OPS and a 338 weighted on-base average for Nick Johnson. Usable, but I think, again, much like everybody else, it looks like, I think there's some better options out there. Now, what does he do that is nice is that he doesn't have too much of a split here, right? So one way I think Johnson could be useful is the fact that with that 90% right-handed pitching, you can have him in there as your versus lefties guy, since he might be slightly better than Ben Taylor versus lefties. But the fact that he doesn't have huge splits, or he splits a little bit versus righties, actually he does have pretty big splits here, 9 points of contact, 14 points of power. But I think he's one of those guys that can be useful, slightly useful versus lefties while being a little bit better versus righties. So maybe as a backup to Ben Taylor, if that's who you're using. But overall, I think there's probably better options out there, and I think he's rated a little bit higher here thanks to his WAR for whatever reason than he probably should be. Number 2 is Eric Thames, who hits pretty well versus right-handed pitching. He is a proven winner, historical player of the month. I haven't even been able to find this card on Auction House, though I have tried. 3,200 plate appearances for him this week. 13th in batting average. It's a little bit low. No surprise with a 45 avoid K and a 64 contact. We expect that batting average to be a little bit low, but everything else is pretty high. 76 gap, 90 power, 77 eye. 23 home runs per 600 is number 1 among first baseman. Solid walks, which leads to a good on-base percentage for him as well. Similar, maybe even slightly better base running or base stealing ability to Ben Taylor with the 34 speed and the 77 steal. It's an okay stolen base percentage, 4.44 steals. You opened 2 live Acuñas this morning? Nice. The eye for Eric Thames is pretty good. This is an interesting card. He's in the auction house right now. Interesting. It's a card I've been wanting to try out. How much is it going for? 6,000? What's his last 7? You know what? I'm just gonna buy one. I'm not saying that you should go out and do this. I am gonna buy one. Thank you for the heads up on that. And I'm gonna see how it runs versus righties. It does have heavy righty splits, which is good. We like that. Again, it's gonna be a lowish batting average, but a good on base percentage. Solid slugging at 441, 784 OPS, 349 weighted on base average. For Eric Thames out of the first base position. Some power here. I think this is a pretty interesting card. Pretty decent defense at first base. 72 range. The 29 error is a little bit concerning, but the first base rating makes up for that just slightly. To go along with the range. I don't love it defensively, but we're going to see how he runs. He is a solid winner. Sweet. Thames comes in at number 2. Who's number 1? Number 1 is our friend Dave Revering. So Thames is going to get a little bit of run over Revering for us, but I still do like this card. He's kind of a backwards Thames with just a little bit less power, but he's still number 2 in home runs, third in batting average, first in slugging, but a lowish on base percentage. The 75 contact, 73 avoid Ks versus righties for Revering is pretty solid. Defensively, he's right there. I mean, it's a really, really similar card to the Thames. Just Thames has a little bit more power and is a little bit more walk-driven on base percentage, whereas Revering's slightly less power versus righties, but more of an on-base guy. You'll get a much better batting average, which I like. I still love this card. I like the Thames. I'm gonna try it, but Revering is definitely going to be in my lineup somewhere. Maybe a designated hitter. I think that a Thames and Revering combination at first base and designated hitter can definitely get you some offense there. 274 average, 468 slugging, second in OPS, third in weighted on base average at 790 and 345. Hasn't been caught stealing once in like one steal. So I would not set him to steal bases very often. 85.51 runs created for Dave Revering. This is one of my favorite cards in the silver set. It has been for 2 years running now. I really like the Revering card in Perfect Team 21 as well. Let's check the other 4 first basemen and see who was there. 11 was Yuli Gurriel. Welcome to silver. You're not good offensively. Pete Alonso, here's that Pete Alonso that we talked about, right? He came in number 12. So he's 11th defensively, 9th offensively over 637 plate appearances. If you can hide him versus lefties, you might get some home runs out of him. He is 3rd in home runs, which leads me to believe that he can hit righties just a little bit. Pete Alonso comes in at number 12. This is one of the live cards that we saw drop down from gold. Number 13 is Hal Chase, which makes me very sad. He's 10th defensively, 10th offensively. And adding Thames to the team is going to push Hal Chase out at the designated hitter position. So that might be very useful as well. And number 14 is Jake Daubert. So 2 guys that run here at 13 and 14. Chase number 1 in steals and Daubert at number 7. Daubert's got a little bit of speed. His net steals are a little bit low thanks to the stolen base. I didn't change it to straight up steals per 600, which I probably need to do. I really need to do that since I'm adding stolen base percentage in here, so it's kind of double counting it there. Sadly, some things that I think about. So Daubert just isn't matching up right now over the last however much time. His numbers dropped a little bit from his all-time numbers too, so just keep that in mind. He did used to get a little bit of use, but I think that he's kind of trickled off. And Hal Chase, a guy who's very good at stealing bases, but just doesn't get on base enough to make that effective. So yeah, on PC, hold mouse over. Okay, replying to people. What do we got here? You pulled one and listed for 39 and it sold in 10 minutes. Jethro, okay. For mobile, if you click on that, go. Oh, we're talking about replying to people. So those are your first basemen. I'm gonna go refresh my coffee. I'm gonna take a quick break and then we'll be back and we'll hit the rest of the hitters and then the pitchers, and I'll see you in just a minute. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I will see you very shortly. Wait, what? All right. I'm back. I am back. I think you can the only guy who can still rock a Magnum PI mustache. I'm not sure that's true. I got one of those Ninja coffee makers. Yeah, that's what I got too. It's awesome. I love it. It's fantastic. My wife got it for me. Um, just out of the blue. It was pretty cool. I tip over 20% at restaurants. Completely accurate. In fact, I am, for somebody who's poor, I probably tip way too well. Help old ladies cross the street. I helped an old lady with her trash barrels the other day, so we got that going for me. I don't ever seem very angry. Well, that's just my persona on screen. You heard that one time I saved a baby squirrel from an incoming semi. Yeah, it caught my ankle. It hurt. How did I get the name Angry Unicorn? Funny story. I was playing around with Twitch. And when I first started out, I couldn't come up with a name, and I'm a fan of like fantasy stuff and stuff like that. And my wife thinks I'm kind of cool, and so she was always like, "Oh, you're like the one of a kind unicorn or whatever," which is super dorky and also not accurate. I'm not that great. She might disagree. I don't know. You'd have to talk to her. And so I changed my username for whatever reason. I don't even know why, because I was like, it's got to have something to do with like, I don't even know why I changed it to Angry Unicorn. And so I changed it to Angered Unicorn. And like immediately I was like, no, you know what? All I ever do is drink coffee. And so I want it to be Caffeinated Unicorn. So I wanted to change it to, which is like the moderator name in my thing now. And I was like, but Twitch is like, you can't change your username for another 30 days. And I'm like, oh no. And then I forgot to change it. And then eventually I had like 50 followers and I was like, I can't change it now. So yeah. Also, you should see me driving in traffic in the town I live in. Can you ask her? Not at the moment. She is not able to come to the computer right now. Someday. I'll let you guys ask her someday, though. Let's move on to second baseman. We had 13 qualifiers. Let's just go through the bottom three first. 13 is Bert Niehoff, which makes me really sad. He's 4th defensively and 13th offensively. He's just bad offensively right now, guys. A 209 average. This might be my Bert Niehoff. I think that's who I'm running on my team right now. I am, which might be why my team's not winning very much. 209 batting average, 252 on base percentage, 621 OPS, 272 weighted on base average, or 13 out of 13. A little bit of gap power here. Number 1 in home runs among second basemen, which is nice, I guess. Number 2 in steals as well. So you got a little bit of power and a little bit of speed. Sadly, he's never on base to use that speed. And the power is, not world-breaking power, so probably better off picking somebody else. I probably need to move on from Bert Niehoff. Number 12 was Jeff McNeil, who hits versus righties, is number 3 offensively, but pretty bad defensively. Does play multiple positions. We might see him at another position eventually. He'll have solid on-base skills against right-handed pitching, I think, for Jeff McNeil, but I think you're better off playing him at like a right fielder or a left fielder, maybe third base. We'll see where else he shows up. Number 11 is DJ LeMahieu, who's grading out 5th defensively, but 11th offensively, which is hilarious to me because I hate the Yankees. He splits a little bit versus lefties, but not huge. It's like 11 points of I is his biggest difference here. Everything else is within 2 or 3 points for LeMahieu. He's okay defensively, but Niehoff's a little bit better. He's just kind of middling offensively at best. Into the top 10, Alex Centrone comes in at number 10. A card that I've really been wanting to get behind, but grading out 4th offensively, grading out 11th defensively at second base. We'll probably talk about him a little bit more when we get to third base. And we'll see how he stacks up among third basemen because I think that's his primary position. He is an interesting card just because you can use him in one of the, in multiple positions and, as a versus lefties third baseman for the off chance that you run into somebody running a lefty pitcher, and then as a backup second baseman / third baseman on the days when he's not playing. So he comes in at number 10. We're going to talk about him more later, though, I believe. Yes, I do dislike the Yankees. Uh, Me for president in 2024? No, I'm unelectable. Uh, I come to a full stop at stop signs most of the time. I do hate the Yankees. I could barbecue kittens for snacks. uh, the first 23 years of my life were destroyed by the Yankees, is what they did to me. Harold Reynolds comes in at number 9. 8th defensively, 8th offensively. Splits versus lefties, except for an eye and gap. It's a pretty big split, though. 20 points of avoid K and 11 points of contact, which makes me think he's going to be better versus lefties than versus righties. He is a switch hitter, which has its uses, but he's not great defensively. He's not a top-tier defensive second baseman. He's going to struggle stealing bases, I think, with the 84 speed, 74 steal. Not necessarily struggle, but you're going to have a lower stolen base percentage than I think you want with Harold Reynolds. And with those splits versus lefties, I think... with only playing second base, I think that limits his use so much in the format right now that he's almost an unusable card at this point. Offensively, he's grading out 8th, which isn't even, he's not even giving good offense while he's in there. 268 average, 323 on base percentage, 387 slugging, 710 OPS are all okay numbers. Middle of the pack among second basemen, but I think there's probably better options out there as your backup second baseman. Number 8 is Saul White. A very interesting card to me because of the amount of different positions that it plays and plays well. He does run 22 net steals per 600 with a 74% stolen base percentage, but sadly, his rate stats are a little bit poor. 238 batting average, 300 on base percentage, 327 slugging, 627 OPS, and 282 weighted on base average are all pretty low numbers for Saul White at this point. Grading out number 2 defensively at second base, splits slightly versus lefties, 1 point in every category, but could play every day. But the fact that he can play second base really well and then play third base and shortstop and right field, I think he's a pretty solid, okay shortstop. Gives him some value as a backup player who can provide at least middling second base offense as well, and a pinch runner towards the end of games too. So if you're a person who runs high steals and uses pinch runners a lot late in games, then he's a guy who could be useful to you too. I just don't think he's quite there offensively to be a starter. I think he's a fantastic utility option, but I have strong concerns about Saul White's ability to be a starter. Jeffrey Meyer ruined your childhood. You must be a Baltimore Orioles fan. So I'm right there with you. I still remember that day. That was rough. Yankees and Dodgers are great for the average salaries of players in the league. Yeah. Plus with Reynolds, you're going to get really bad. And no comment. Do they make homophobic remarks about the most popular player in baseball today? You mean like Stephen A. Smith? What an idiot. Number 8, Saul White. Number 7 is Louis Arise. Louis Arise got 895 plate appearances this week, even after dropping down to bronze. It's just a good card, guys. He grades out 10th defensively, so he's not great defensively, but he does play multiple positions. But he is the first really kind of solid offensive card that we've had on the second base list right now. 279 average, 330 on base percentage, 388 slugging, 721 OPS, 320 weighted on base average, even at silver. Obviously, those numbers are down a little bit from his all-time silver numbers because he has dropped down to bronze, so his ratings took a little bit of a hit. But he's still pretty solid right now for Louis Arise here in silver. You heard Nick Castellanos hit a dinger as Steven. Yeah, I think Saul is a great utility guy, Axel. You'll be twice as dumb for half the price. I like it, Fire Red. I wish I had more baseball knowledge because I feel like I could do some of those guys' jobs. But I don't have nearly enough knowledge. Pete Rose comes in at number 6. Number 1 offensively, 13th out of 13 defensively at second base. I think we'll talk about him more when we get to left field, but if you want a straight offensive team, you can do worse than Pete Rose offensively at second base, but he is really, really bad defensively to the point that I would not play him. I would not even consider him defensively at second base for Pete Rose. That's just my thoughts. But he is very, very good offensively. We're going to talk about him a little bit more later. Number 5 is Ryan Sandberg, who split slightly versus lefties in contact and avoid Ks. Well, 8 points of contact, 3 points of gap, 14 points of avoid Ks. The power and I both split slightly versus right-handed pitching for Ryan Sandberg. He is 9th defensively. He's grading out 2nd offensively. Is he usable? Perhaps. 282 average, 343 on base percentage, 390 slugging, 733 OPS, 328 weighted on base average, and a 282 WAR for Ryan Sandberg. He is number 2 offensively. Can you live with his defense? That's kind of up to you. A 60 range with a 62 rating and a 72 error is a little bit low for me here at Silver. I think I want all of those numbers to be just a little bit higher. I can live with the 41 arm, but the 72 error is okay. The range is just slightly low for me, and I'd like a little bit higher second base rating. He's definitely a second, maybe a third tier defensive second baseman, but again, better than Pete Rose, right? And pretty solid offensive numbers for Ryan Sandberg. He comes in at number 5. Number 4 is Walter Kennedy, your most used second baseman. He's grading out 3rd defensively. He's grading out 9th offensively. Very little splits. He's a guy who can play every day, which is nice. But his rate stats are leaving a little bit to be desired. A 254 batting average, 297 on base percentage, 379 slugging, 676 OPS, and a 298 weighted on base average. He is 6th in WAR at 2.31. Little bit of power at 8.8 home runs per 600. Good base running skills for Kennedy. Relatively good base running skills for Kennedy. 6th in stolen base percentage, 4th in net steals. Doesn't strike out much, so the ball's going to be in play for him. He is a proven winner at 26% of his points. Learning Channel Bad Learning now teaches you that humanity needs to be destroyed by a large rock from space. That's fair. You like Vikings when you don't like thinking about things, be it the amount of time bending that happens. Haven't watched it at all. So yeah, it won't be too long before there's a 20 Out of the Park Devs is a 24-hour sports channel. We're getting there. We're making progress towards that. Walter Kennedy comes in at number 4. Number 3 is Newt Allen, grading out number 1 defensively at second base, grading out number 10 offensively. Interesting that he can play second base and shortstop, kind of shortstop. He's a little bit lower rated for shortstop, I think. Saul White's probably a little bit better as a utility guy. Offensively, Allen's a little bit low on the offensive spectrum. 11th in batting average, 7th in on-base percentage, which is okay. Number 1 in walks among second basemen, but 13th in slugging, 11th in OPS, and 10th in weighted on base average for him, and 10th in WAR as well. No power to speak of. The steals are there, 11 steals at a 60% stolen base percentage. The 76 speed with 80 steal rating is pretty solid. I think that you got to tone it down just a little bit. To get and that net steal will come up just a little bit too if you tone his if you put him a peg or two down from the highest level there. Let him be a little bit more selective in his stolen base. But again, number 1 defensively at second base. He is what he is though offensively for Newt Allen. Are the Negro League Silvers all worthwhile? I think so. I think they're worthwhile. I think some are a little bit better than others. I really like the Saul White. The Kennedy is pretty good. The Allen's usable. I think they're all usable. I think all of these cards in this silver list are usable in some way, shape, or form. I just think there's some that are better than others. Number 2, I have no idea who number 2 and number 1 are going to be right now. Adam Frazier in his 1,500 plate appearances dropped to 270 batting average, 327 on base percentage, and a 389 slugging on us, with a 716 OPS and a 317 weighted on base average. Interesting. Adam Frazier. 6 defensively is what he's grading out at. Plays some outfield as well. 7th offensively, so you're getting some defense here and some offense versus righties. You know, I don't think this is an unusable live card here in silver right now. I think it's an interesting option. I think it's usable. Greg Turkington doing in the park with out of the park. Interesting. Ancient Aliens my wife loves Ancient Aliens. It's hilarious. She follows the Giorgio on Facebook. That dude is a trip. He might be one of my favorite people on the planet right now. And I know he might be one of the people on the planet that she likes better than she likes me. But you know, it's as long as the conspiracy theory stuff in there is kind of off the wall. But if you follow Giorgio on Facebook, he's hilarious. He's a lot more down to earth than you expect out of a guy who looks at not down to earth, but realistic than you would expect from a guy who peddled those alien conspiracy theories. He definitely doesn't buy into all of the conspiracy theories that are out there right now. Number 1 is rookie sensation Brent Gates. Rating out 7th defensively and 6th offensively. He's number 1 in WAR at 3.91. 72 runs created per 600. I'm a little surprised to see him this high, but he's 2nd in average, 2nd in on-base percentage, 9th in slugging, 5th in OPS, and 5th in weighted on-base average. You're getting pretty solid defense. It's definitely a second-tier defense as compared to the guys who are up there at number 1, like the Newt Allen, who's got the really high error. But, you know, the 84 range with his 79 second base rating, the error is what's dragging him down just a little bit. Offensively, he's putting up pretty solid numbers as well. He's a good, if slow, base runner for Brent Gates. 67 contact, 63 gap, 56 I, 61 avoid Ks. Usable numbers. You know, I think it's a usable card. Again, I think that you can kind of pick your poison here. I don't have one card here at second base in silver that I'm like, I really think this is the best card out there. I am definitely moving on from Bert Niehoff, I think. I've been using him for too long, and I think he's probably dragging my team down. I'm probably going to go with one of the Negro League guys, try to get Saul White in there as a utility guy. I might try this Brent Gates out. You know, I think he's an interesting combination of offense and defense, and I think I might give him a try. I'm just going to plug him in. Just to remind myself later on that that's what I wanted to do. But I think a lot of these cards, the Frazier is usable, especially with 90% right-handed pitching right now. I think Frazier can hit right-handed pitching. Might be more useful as a utility guy, as like a right field / second base utility guy, than as necessarily as a starting second baseman, but I don't think it's unusable. Let's see. You got Newt Allen, who I think is absolutely usable. If you can live with if you really just want to go all in on defense at second base, maybe more of a utility guy at second base, shortstop. You got Kennedy, who can play a little bit, good defensively, good, you know, okay, reasonably good offensively. Sandberg, who's definitely a little bit deficient defensively at second base, but provides you a little bit more offense than some of those other guys. I think Sandberg's a usable card as well. So just some interesting options here at second base, and I don't really have one that I would say, hey, this absolutely has to be in your lineup. So I do like Frazier. I do like the Frazier card. Probably pretty cheap too. So it might be one of those positions where you can throw a live card in there and save yourself some perfect points if you're having trouble finding some of these cards, which some of these silver cards can get a little bit difficult to find. Third base, we got 6 qualifiers, guys. Let's do this. Number 6 is you're full of it. Oh, what's going on here? Hold on a second. Something happened in the defensive stuff. I have to fix that. Why is Nolan Arenado not getting defensive ratings? He's not showing up on the defense list for some reason. Something is messed up with Nolan Arenado's defensive ratings right now. There he is. Give him 0. Oh, that's what it is. Hold on. I know what happened. The list got too big. Fixed. That should fix it. That's annoying. Let's fix that. All right, Harry Lord comes in at number 6. That was hilarious and embarrassing. Harry Lord comes in at number 6. Offensively, he's grading out number 1. Defensively, he's grading out at number bad. 25 range, 44 arm, 43 double play, 52 error, and a 19 third base rating. I would not play him at third base. Is he good enough to be a designated hitter? If you run a lineup that has power at other positions, if you're just not looking for too much power out of your designated hitter, I really think this card could be useful as a designated hitter. 287 average, 322 on base percentage with a 400 slugging and a 722 OPS. Fourth in weighted on base average at 319. Low teens, home runs, very, very good base running. It's not often you see the guy with the highest net steals also have the highest stolen base percentage, but Harry Lord does that. I really think this card can be used on the right team as a designated hitter. So keep that in mind. I don't think he's usable as a third baseman. I really, really can't get behind using this guy defensively as a third baseman when there's other options out there that provide pretty good offense as well. If there was no other offense at third base and you just really needed offense, then I think that he might be usable. But I really think that, you have to get some semblance of defense out of third base, and there's guys who can play defense and offense at the position. So Harry Lord comes in at number 6, but again, use him as a designated hitter. Friends don't let friends play Harry Lord at third base. I agree. Number 5 is Jeff McNeil. This is live Jeff McNeil, who also looks like he can play a little bit versus right-handed pitching. Solid batting average. He's grading out third offensively at third base, 270 average, 325 on base percentage. Second in slugging and OPS. I don't think this card's unusable by any stretch, but I think that there's cards at the position that are pretty easy to get that kind of make him less useful at third base. The 21 third base rating is a little bit concerning to me. I really want to see where he ranks against the other right fielders because I feel like that's our best option for McNeil at this point. He'll hit versus right-handed pitching, guys. I'm not going to lie. You're going to get a 270, 325 average on base percentage with pretty decent slugging out of him as well. The offensive ratings are not quite similar to Harry Lord, but the high contact, high avoid Ks, he's going to get on base versus righties, which is good. But I think that there's better options at third base. Number 4 is Freddie Sanchez, who used to be a really, really solid option before a couple other guys came around. Loses a little bit of offensive value right now just because the runs created are a little bit low. He's a very singles heavy kind of guy and doesn't get on base enough to really make stuff happen. That's wrong. He's singles, he's doubles, but he doesn't have any speed. He doesn't have any power. And defensively, he's definitely lower on the tier. He's still going to get on base versus righties. Can he be a designated hitter? Sure. If you're looking for singles and doubles and nothing else out of your designated hitter versus righties, I think it's still a pretty solid offensive card. It just is very, very specific in what it does. It's going to be some singles and some doubles with that solid gap power. He will get doubles with that solid gap power, but you're not going to see too many triples, and the home runs are going to be pretty low for Freddie Sanchez. And defensively, there's better options at third base. Much better options at third base. Number 3 is Judd Wilson, who's a very interesting option as a utility guy at third base, perhaps. I just noticed that our guy Cintrone didn't showing up at third base here. So Wilson can play as a backup kind of utility guy, third base, second base, first base, left field, shortstop. There's a lot of different things you can do with Judd Wilson. He is grading out number 2 offensively at third base, with the solid righty splits here in the format are pretty good. Third defensively, it's a pretty far third defensively, let's be honest, behind the number 1 and number 2 guy. 269 average, 319 on base percentage. The slugging and OPS are pretty good for him. He's number 1 in both of those categories. Fourth in home runs, second in net steals per 600, fourth in stolen base percentage for him as well. Will strike out some. Isn't going to walk too much, right in the middle of the pack here, but a 324 weighted on base average and 79 runs created per 600. Both solid numbers among third baseman. At number 2 is Brooks Robinson, who grades out second defensively but 6th offensively. 71 contact, 75 gap, 50 power, 79 avoid Ks versus righties. Splits a little bit versus lefties for him, for Brooks Robinson, but a pretty clear second defensively behind the number 1 guy on the list, who is going to be Nolan Arenado. 271 average, 309 on base percentage, 392 slugging, 700 OPS for Robinson. The on-base percentage, the OPS, the weighted on-base averages are all pretty low among third basemen. The power is a little bit low. Just doesn't stand out offensively, but again, pretty solid bat. Loses some of, he does split versus lefties. To keep that in mind. And therein lies the problem when we get up to number 1. Nolan Arenado is number 1. He is far and away the best defensive third baseman in the format. Offensively, he's pretty good against righties. He's okay against righties. 69 contact, 71 gap, 66 power, 66 avoid Ks. I have a feeling, so right around the time Arenado dropped was when we started seeing like 90 percentile starting pitchers. It used to be lower. It was in the 80s for a little while. And my question for you guys is, do you guys feel like the format switched to all right-handed starting pitchers just because of this card? Because this card will mash against lefties. He will be absolutely awesome against lefties, but he doesn't get to face them, sadly. He's gonna be okay versus righties, and he's pretty clearly the best defensive third baseman here in the silver format, but he never gets to face the pitchers that he's going to be solid against. And I'm going to be honest, this guy is a fantastic option as a platoon for Sporers. This is a card that you can use in a platoon in gold. Maybe not so much anymore in Sporers since it went to a diamond, which I'm very sad about. But you think he absolutely warped the pitching meta. I agree. This is a card that'll mash in diamond. He'll hit diamond pitching against lefties. It's crazy. This card was just nuts when it came out, and nobody wants to throw left-handed pitching anymore. You think there are a few viable lefty starters? I agree, but they're not getting used. They're not getting used. And as we go through this list, right, we're seeing this list. There are a lot of really good hitters that split heavy versus lefties. Even like Brooks Robinson splits versus lefties. At other positions, we had guys who split versus lefties. And so I think that it's that's leading into it too. I don't think it's just a Nolan Arenado thing. I think that it's that there's a lot of silver cards that split heavy versus lefties. And so you're curious how Ryu is doing. We'll see. Seems like sort of a viable lefty starting. You've had mixed results with him. Yeah, we'll see how Ryu is doing. But it makes me really sad that we never get to see what Arenado can do against left-handed starting pitching in silver. Because this card would absolutely destroy them. I actually really like this card as a platoon partner in gold. He's good, and he's fantastic in cap formats that go up to gold. The Sporers format is one I'm thinking of, and like the historical cap format is one I'm thinking of as well. So it's really sad that we don't get to see the potential of this card just because of the way the format's running right now, because I think that it is a card that is spectacular and good. I mean, it's good versus right-handed pitching, but we just don't get to see it play versus lefties, and it makes me sad. He's your number 1 third baseman. Shortstops. 14 qualifiers. Let's just go back and do the bottom 4 first and see which ones of them are in my lineup. Dick Grote at number 14. Looks like he can hit versus lefties a little bit, not so much versus righties, and is okay defensively. Number 13 is Chris Taylor. This is your live Chris Taylor. Interesting utility option. We'll see if he gets into the top 10 anywhere. 12 is Hanley. Again, hits versus lefties. The splits versus righties are concerning and doesn't play great defense at shortstop. Number 11 is Tony Fernandez. Similar splits versus lefties. Does bat switch. Can maybe hit a little bit versus righties. Grading out 12th offensively. Grading out 4th defensively. He's a good defensive shortstop, so keep that in mind. With a little bit of offense. But again, the splits versus lefties are a little bit concerning because the splits versus righties don't look good. Especially that 31i with the 56 contact rating. I just don't think the 77 avoid Ks with a 56 contact rating and a 31i are going to give him a very good batting average, which you can see. 11th in average, 14th in on-base percentage, grading out 12th offensively among shortstops. So getting into the top 10, number 10 is Alex Cintrone, who's your third most used. But again, I believe he gets used as a platoon option versus lefties and a utility guy because he plays some third, he plays some second, plays some short. He's kind of an interesting option there. He is 13th out of 14 defensively at shortstop. But he's grading out number 3 offensively. 284 average, 330 on-base percentage, 403 slugging. And I think Cintrone is a really, really useful card as a utility guy. And again, as a platoon versus lefties, where you're not going to see him very often, but he will give you offense from the position. He comes in at number 10, though, based mostly on his defense. Number 9 is Starlin Castro with 972 plate appearances. You can see we had 14 qualifiers, but a lot of them didn't get too many plate appearances, so there will be some small sample sizes. Castro's grading out 7th defensively and 10th offensively, to the point that I think there are way better options out there than Starlin Castro. Again, he's kind of okay defensively, but offensively he doesn't add enough value to make being kind of okay defensively at shortstop be a viable option. And he splits a little bit of power versus lefties, a little bit of or versus righties, 6 points of contact, but 10 points of I and 15 points of gap versus righties, and 7 points of avoid K versus righties for Starlin Castro. Sorry, the gap and I were versus lefties for Castro. I just think he's so mediocre at everything that none of it gives him too much value at shortstop. Arenado plus versatility minus defense. Yeah, that's fair. You're very curious. Yeah, we'll see how Ryu is doing. You guys got quiet all of a sudden. So Miguel Rojas is grading out 3rd defensively and 11th offensively. This is a live Miguel Rojas, who got 1,700 plate appearances this week. Pretty solid offensively. Maybe a card that you can find, or defensively, maybe a card that you can find on the auction house for cheap. Again, if you're having trouble finding some of the harder to find cards. Only plays shortstop and really splits versus lefties, so he's kind of limited in what he's going to be able to do for you. I think that his versus righties numbers are pretty close to unplayable, unfortunately. But if you can fit a versus lefties pretty good defensive shortstop on your team that only plays shortstop, then I think you could have some value. But I think his scope is so limited that it makes him very difficult to fit in there. Number 7 is live Tim Anderson. Oh, gotcha. Is live Tim Anderson. Again, a guy who splits a little bit versus lefties, grading out 9th defensively, but somehow grading out 5th offensively, probably because he's only playing against lefties, and provides a little bit of power, mid-teens and home runs, can run the bases a little bit as well, with almost 18 steals per 600 and a 75% stolen base percentage. Both of those numbers are pretty solid for a guy with a 280 batting average. I'd like the on-base percentage to be a little bit higher, but with a 25i, that's all you're going to get. And so a 302 on-base percentage for a guy who gets so much of his value out of his speed, that's a little bit low for me, but a 716 OPS and a 313 weighted on-base average for Tim Anderson. Decent offensively, definitely third-tier defensive shortstop. He dropped from an 85 to a 78 for Anderson, so, Might be worth a shot for some people if you can fit him on the team as a versus lefties. But again, similar to Rojas, only plays shortstop, and Rojas is a better defensive shortstop, even if Anderson's slightly better offensively. So Rojas is now driving around Miami depressed because I called him unusable. I'm sorry, Miguel Rojas. I think you're a pretty solid current major league player, but you know, it is what it is for tournament formats. Tyler Freeman comes in at number 6. 11th defensively, 2nd offensively, a solid offensive card, especially against lefties. He does have slight splits versus lefties of 75 contact versus 70 versus righties. So it's 5 points, 5 points of gap, 2 points of power, 1 point of eye, and 3 points of avoid Ks versus lefties. Plays a little bit of second base, so I don't know how much you value this number here. Again, that's kind of up to you. But he's got decent range. The shortstop rating is not great, but if you hide him versus lefties and he's only playing like once every 10 days, or really it'd probably end up being like every 4 or 5 days for Freeman, because he's going to fill in for your starter when your starter gets tired. But he comes in at number 6. Very good offensively. I feel like he's not unusable defensively, but he's definitely deficient defensively at both shortstop and second base. Number 5 is future legend Jeremy Pena. Number 5 defensively, number 9 offensively is Pena in 659 plate appearances. Slate splits versus lefties basically across the board. It's 2 or 3 points except for the 5 points of contact. 5th in batting average at 255, 8th in on-base percentage, 9th in slugging and OPS. Pretty good defensively. That's where he's getting a lot of his value from. And also steals some bases. 20 steals per 600 net steals with an 84% stolen base percentage for Jeremy Pena is pretty solid. But again, the on-base percentage is a little bit low for a guy who gets so much value from base running. And the rest of the rate stats are pretty low too among shortstops at 9th, basically across the board in slugging, OPS, and weighted on base average. There's not a lot of power here, but decent defense with pretty okay offense. I just think there's better options here in silver, and I think we're probably going to see them as we get a little bit higher on the list. John Beckwith splits a little bit versus lefties. Moderate splits, I would go so far as to say, as opposed to like minor splits. He's grading out 6th defensively and 4th offensively, so you're getting pretty good defense with pretty good offense to go along with it. And the nice thing about Beckwith is that he plays a whole bunch of different positions too. So we didn't see him on the first base list, but he can play shortstop, he can play third, he can play first base. I would probably avoid playing him at catcher still. That 1 catcher rating for Beckwith is probably unusable there, I would say. And I'm not going to apologize for that one. But he's grading out 4th among shortstops in batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, weighted on base average. I think he's an interesting shortstop versus lefties. And a backup kind of utility guy, plays a little bit of multiple positions. That to the point where I think it's a very useful card for the format, because there's not too many cards that can play like shortstop and first base. It allows you to get utility players in other positions or straight platoons in other positions that you might not be able to otherwise. The problem is I don't know how his his bat's not quite going to stack up all that well among like first basemen. Even though you could throw him at first base, and he's probably the number 1 defensive first baseman, just based off of a cursory glance here. I don't know that his bat stacks up there, just because there's no power here. The speed's a little bit lower than I would think. I think people might be able to, the 11 net steals with a 63% stolen base percentage seems a little bit low for what the numbers look like here. But he's going to have pretty solid numbers, especially against lefties, and I think he'll hit okay versus righties too. If you could play second at all, you would love him. I agree. Absolutely agree. You don't have good luck with future legend cards. There's some good future legend cards, so I'm sorry you're not having good luck with them. Andrelton Simmons grades out at number 3. He is really bad offensively, but he is still number 1 defensively here in silver. We know that he's far and away the best defensive player in bronze, but I really think in silver, you need to try to get some offense out of your shortstop, even at shortstop if you can. The 242 average, 13th in on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, weighted on base average, 12th in home runs, doesn't really run the bases. It's just a useless offensive card for the level. And I really think the other guys, he's at number 3 purely because of defense. And I really think that the other guys, the guys that are going to be at number 2 and number 1, are better options than Andrelton Simmons. Number 2 is Jazz Chisholm. Chisholm's grading out 10th defensively, only plays shortstop, but is a really good offensive shortstop. And again, we're at the point now where you're not seeing too many unusable defensive players on these lists. Even so, his range versus Simmons, you're seeing, well, I'm not even going to compare him to Simmons because Simmons is so much better. But we'll take a look at the number 1 guy. We'll compare him to the number 1 guy in a minute. But a 76 range, 70 arm, 72 double play, and a 61 shortstop rating, I don't think is unusable at the level, even though he's grading out 10th defensively. Obviously, it's going to hurt your pitching staff a little bit, but offensively, he's grading out number 1, largely thanks to the power numbers that nobody else at shortstop. And really, there's not too many cards in the format that come close to Jazz Chisholm's power numbers. A 445 slugging, 771 on OPS with a 326 on base percentage. So he's going to walk and he's going to hit home runs and he's going to strike out. And he's going to have a solid average. I think it's an interesting card if you fit it into your lineup the right way. I really think that Nick Allen is a better choice, though. He's grading out 8th offensively, 8th in batting average, 4th in on-base percentage. The slugging percentage is a little bit lower. Just because it's shortstop, I think that he grades out a little bit better than the Chisholm just because the defense is there. You got 13 points of range. You got a lot of arm, 6 points of arm. You got 9 points of turn double play, and really the almost 50 points of error rating over Chisholm, between Chisholm and Nick Allen in the, 30 points, 16 points at shortstop. Nick Allen's pretty clearly the choice between the two defensively, and it's not even really close. How far off of Simmons is Allen? Simmons has the arm rating, but honestly, Nick Allen's error rating is better than Andrelton Simmons, and his shortstop rating is right there. I actually think Nick Allen is a better choice defensively than Andrelton Simmons. Even though Simmons is grading out at number 1, it's all in that arm. Can I look at list stats? You feel like he's underused here? Yeah, I'll see what I can find. Wonder why they even give a catcher ability of 1. Maybe because he played there. I don't know. Did he play 1 game in high school? So in order to do it, they had to have played. In order to get it, they had to have played 10% of their games at the position. So this season. So that was one of the big changes this year. Running Chisholm versus righties and Allen versus lefties is great if you can afford to carry players that only play shortstop. I agree. And there are 2 players that only play shortstop, so that's what makes it a little bit difficult. Yeah, and if you can hide Allen versus lefties, but the problem is then he's not going to play at all, right? So if you're running Chisholm as your starter, Allen as your defensive sub at shortstop, and then Allen versus lefties, I think that's doable. Obviously, Allen's numbers versus righties leave a little bit to be desired, but I think if you're going with 1 player at shortstop, I really think Nick Allen is the guy. But I think there's a lot of guys on this list who are usable too, and if you put your lineup together right, I think all of them can be useful. But if you're looking for just 1 guy at shortstop to play every single day, I really think Nick Allen is probably that guy, personally. Thoughts? You wanted to look at Chisholm. Yeah, and Chisholm as a designated hitter is an option as well. I think Chisholm's bat stacks up with some of the better first base bats, with some of the better bats in the format, and I really think it's usable as a DH, but I think it's usable as a shortstop too. I don't think it's just a straight designated hitter. I think if you're putting the right team around him, like say Arenado at third base, where you don't necessarily need to have the best defensive shortstop out there, I definitely think Chisholm is useful. I think that Arenado card dropping made this card a lot more viable, personally. We wanted to look at Listach. Let's see. So I have 432 plate appearances for Listach, 252 average, 324 on base percentage. Slugging is pretty low. 617 OPS, 283 weighted on base average. Let's see if we can look at the card. I got knocked out of both tournaments. Didn't show up in this tournament. See if there's any on the auction house. There he is. Oh, I have one. Defensively, definitely a tier 2 defensive card. Speed looks okay. Versus righties, I don't love it. The 46 avoid Ks with a 58 I. Versus lefties, it's 47 I, 57 avoid Ks. Maybe usable versus lefties. Only plays shortstop. I don't know that I'd call it unusable, but I also don't know that I'd call it underused either. I think there's probably better options. I think if it's all you have, I don't think it's necessarily going to lose you tournaments on its own, but I'm not sold on it either. I think he could be used as a cap card for sure. I think he could definitely be used up there in like a silver cap or something like that, but I don't know that he'd make the list necessarily. For me, looks like an okay card, but I think that there's quite a few better options out there in the format than that card specifically. Left fielders. We had 13 qualifiers. Oh, interesting. Weird. You know what I think happened here? Hold on one second. Bear with me for just 1 second. That is exactly what happened here. I got too many qualifiers all time for left field. All right, there we go. Makes more sense. So Gilkey comes in at number 10 out of 13. Let's go through the bottom three first. Bottom three qualifiers here. 13 is Josh DeVore, who got 1,100 plate appearances. Is grading out 13th defensively in left field and 10th offensively in left field. Don't love it as a designated hitter. Don't love it as a left fielder. He runs bases. Is this all you? Is Nameless Poet here today? I haven't seen Nameless Poet, but that might be who's running a lot of Josh DeVore out there. 225 average, 322 on base percentage, 355 slugging. He comes in at number 13. 12th is Hack Miller, who's got a solid contact rating. No splits to speak of, almost. 1 point of gap and 1 point of I is the only splits we have on Hack Miller. Sadly, he's pretty bad defensively and doesn't make up for that by being good offensively. Does have a little bit of power. 5th in home runs among left fielders. Number 11 is Marcell Ozuna, live Marcell Ozuna, who looks like he can probably hit a little bit versus lefties, but only plays left field and doesn't do it particularly well. He's 10th defensively and 12th offensively, so we're going to move on to the top 10. At number 10 is Bernard Gilkey, who has some interesting splits. So 5 points of contact versus lefties, but 12 points of gap, 9 points of power, 6 points of I versus righties, and 11 points of avoid K versus lefties, which is all very interesting. He's grading out 9th defensively and 6th offensively for Gilkey. Only plays left field. 4th in average, 3rd in on-base percentage, 8th in slugging, 6th in OPS, 5th in weighted on-base average. So it's an interesting looking offensive card. To me, this Bernard Gilkey. Well-rounded offensively, gives you a little bit of power, not a lot. 13th out of 30. I mean, the 8 home runs is pretty low among left fielders, but he's got some gap going on there. He's even with the low home run numbers, he's giving you a solid slugging of 402. Defensively, he's kind of middling among left fielders, which is one of those positions where you can almost live with having poor defense in left field. I don't necessarily want poor defense in left field, but I think he's right there in that second or third tier of defensive left fielders. Are you crazy for running him as a DH? Maybe a little bit. I don't know. I don't love it as a DH. I think I think it'll be better versus lefties, even though you're getting a little bit more power versus righties. I don't know. That's a tough one. It's no mid to late 90s Mets Gilkey, which you assume would be a perfect card, but it's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I definitely don't think it's unusable. I would love to see more of a sample size on it, so by all means, keep running it as a DH or as a left fielder so I can get some more information on it. This is one of the new is this one of the new tournament rewards? Is that where this one came from? It was one of the new silver tournament rewards for Gilkey, or maybe it was the St. Louis team reward or something. I'm not really sure where it popped up at, but it's a newer card, and it looks to have some value offensively for sure. So keep running it for me. Get me more data on it, please, because I'll probably never see it. Number 9 is Build a Legend Tim Raines, dropping down to number 9. We're seeing a 254 average, grading out 6th defensively, 7th offensively for Raines. Pretty sure it's a new one. It's the last 10 is around 12K, which isn't awful when you think about silver cards. That's pretty average for some of those special edition cards when they first come out. I definitely think it's usable. It definitely looks usable to me, but I want more of a sample size before I say anything definitively. It just seems like a well-rounded offensive card to me. It kind of does a little bit of everything offensively. And again, not great defensively, but not terrible. Like, it's not the worst defensive left field card I've seen. So, kind of is what it is. I wouldn't be surprised to see him move up the list with more of a sample size. Raines with 4,300 plate appearances does not have small sample size issues. He's grading out 6th defensively, 7th offensively. He's 4th in on-base percentage and runs the bases really well. So that's where we get a lot of value out of this Tim Raines card, is he gets on base at a pretty good clip at 343 and runs the bases really well as well. So he's a solid option as a number 1, number 2 hitter at the top of your lineup. Unfortunately, splits versus lefties, so it would be even more effective versus lefties, but the format is it's so right-handed heavy that you're just not going to get that much out of it. But the splits versus righties aren't unusable either. His contact and avoid K is actually split slightly versus right-handed pitching, so you're going to get a little bit higher of a batting average out of there. It's a pretty, man, if this eye was even a little bit closer to this, like a 75 or something, this would be a seriously spectacular card in the format. But right now, I think it's a little bit limited right now just because it's so much split versus lefties. That there aren't too many lefties in the lineup. I think that this card gets a little bit limited in its value. He's a very viable left fielder. Yeah, the Gilkey, I think it's definitely a viable card. Number 8 is Coco Crisp. He's here largely because of his defense. He still gets a proven winner designation, but he's definitely not up there offensively. I ran Crisp for a little while. It hurt my offense so much that I determined I didn't want to run with him too much anymore. I think he's out of the lineup now. I'm really not sure. Yeah, we finally decided to go with Rose. But Crisp is he's an okay defensive left fielder. I don't love him in center field. If his center field rating was just a little bit better, then perhaps he'd be more viable as a utility candidate. Grading out 9th offensively, 5th in batting average, which is okay. 322 on base percentage, 406 slugging for him. You find the bronze Raines plays better than the silver. Even here at silver, Teddy, you have Gilkey slashing 287, 345, 435, 14 home runs, 15 steals, which is a little better than what I'm seeing out of him, right? Yeah, you've seen a slightly better for sure. I think that, man, let's go buy some Gilkeys or win some Gilkeys. I want to see more of them. I will probably never see that one. Is there any on Auction House right now? I might get one just to try to get more data on it. He is 13,000. I got 62,000. That's slightly above last 7. Did anybody buy this just now? I'm going to buy it just to try to get more data on it. Because that's my job, right? The main team builds me perfect points up, and I use them on frivolous expenditures. We're plugging him in. Maybe as a DH. Let's plug him in as a DH for now. Crisp at number 8. Kurt Blefari comes in at number 7. This is a card that has been up and down and up and down. It's a very low batting average card, but has some power. 22 home runs. Grades out 11th defensively. He's pretty bad defensively in left field, but number 1 in on-base percentage, number 2 in slugging, number 1 in OPS, number 1 in weighted on-base average, and number 1 in stolen base percentage, which is really useful because he's stolen 1 base. 7th in strikeouts and number 1 in walks. I mean, it's an interesting offensive card that I think, I find this card to be interestingly useful. usable. I think he does some things offensively that some other cards don't necessarily do, which is power in left field. Solid on-base percentage to go along with it. Again, the lowish batting average, so you can't have, I don't think you can have too many guys like this in your lineup. So if you're running, like, who is the Chisholm, it's a similar card to Chisholm, maybe a little bit better in the batting average department, but where you're getting the lowish contact with a lowish avoid Ks, where you're going to end up with a lowish batting average, but a lot of home runs and a solid on base percentage anyway. Blefary is similar to that, and I think you can fit one or two of those guys in your lineup, and I think Blefary is a usable card when it comes to that. You have a question about Silver, Build a Legend, Scott Kazmir. Anyone had good luck with him? I'm not sure off the top of my head. We'll see the pitcher list when we get there. So Blefary comes in at number 7. Bad defensively, grading out number 1 offensively among left fielders, though. So I definitely think it's a usable card, especially right now in the format. Number 6 is Ken Griffey, who grades out 7th defensively and 3rd offensively. So you're getting a little bit of it's a little bit of a well-rounded card. Good contact and avoid K numbers, good power numbers, decent gap, although his gap splits versus lefties a little bit. Everything else splits pretty significantly towards right-handed pitching. I think currently speaking, this is a usable card in the format as well. Only got 690 plate appearances over this small sample size, but we're seeing a 448 slugging, 287 batting average, 335 on base percentage. All of those numbers a little bit higher than his all-time numbers, where he's not grading out nearly as well as he did this week. So that's Ken Griffey at number 6. Number 5 is Snapshot David DeJesus from 2008. Grading out number 1 defensively, but grading out 13th offensively. So we're not going to spend too much time talking about him, just because I really think you want a little bit more offense than that out of your left fielder. But he is a solid on-base percentage guy with a little bit of speed. If you can hide him versus lefties, he might have a good batting average, and he plays versus center fielders and right fielders. And so I'm curious if you can coax a little bit more offense out of him as a platoon in left field, but as a utility guy on his days off. It's interesting. I don't love it, don't hate it. Again, with 652 plate appearances, you're seeing a 260 average all time. He's 42nd out of 47 in home run slugging percentage. Doesn't have too much power, and doesn't really have enough speed to make up for that either. So I would go so far as to say I'm not terribly interested in this card. Yeah, we'll just move on. Number 4 is Pete Rose, comes in at number 4, which is a little bit surprising. He's grading out 2nd offensively, 8th defensively here in left field, number 1 in batting average, number 2 in on-base percentage, 4th in slugging, 2nd in OPS, and 2nd in weighted on-base average. Not a lot of speed, but the defense isn't as bad here in left field as it is in right field or second base, to the point that I'd call him a usable defensive left fielder. You'll get a little bit of gap and a little bit of power against the majority of your pitchers, and a solid on-base percentage thanks to that 57i. You'll get a slightly better batting average versus left-handed pitchers, but not a hugely different batting average versus lefties. Even though he is a switch hitter, 290 batting average, 350 on base percentage. Again, 2nd in the rest of these categories here. 2nd in WAR as well. 3rd in runs created at 86.3 among left fielders. I didn't see. Oh, come on, Excel. We'll give it a second to catch back up to us. Perhaps. Your number 1 most used left fielder. One of the better bats in the format, I think. He was 2nd to our guy, Blefary. What was I doing here? Who was number 1 in runs created at 87. Where Rose is just, within 1 runs created of Blefary. And there's another guy in there somewhere. I don't know who is number 2. But Rose comes in at number 4. Number 3 is Brenton Doyle. Future legend Brenton Doyle, who has slight splits versus lefties, plays pretty okay defense, 3rd defensively, 8th offensively for Brenton Doyle. An interesting option as a utility outfielder, I think. Yeah, no, I agree about Rose. For he's like two different players versus lefties and versus righties. You're gonna get the doubles and a little bit of home runs versus righties. Also, the on base percentage is probably gonna be a little bit higher, but he'll be slapping singles versus lefties. All day long for Pete Rose there. Doyle at number 3, pretty good defensively, okay offensively, a little bit of power here, splits a little bit versus lefties, is a proven winner, can play play in right field, left field, center field. It looks like 830. This is the only place we're going to see him today, so you're not going to see him again. This is a card that I think is useful as a like a bat off the bench and a utility hitter. He's an okay offensive card that plays multiple outfield positions and plays 2 of them reasonably well, and can play center field. He's a guy you can plug in at center field. So Doyle comes in here at number 3. Number 2 in left field is Brian Reynolds. Live Brian Reynolds. Interesting. Why is he number 2? 1,400 plate appearances for him. 253 average is 10th, but a 332 on base percentage. Third in home runs at 17.46. Doesn't really run. 5th in runs created per 600, which is where he's getting some of his value, and plays some good defense. Solid defensive left fielder with a little bit of offense to go along with it. What do you guys think? Is this card playable at all? 416 slugging, 748 OPS, 333 weighted on base average. I think he is higher than I would want him to be. But it's, another one of those live cards that's just kind of well-rounded. It hits versus lefties, it hits versus righties. It's got a little bit of speed to go along with it. Decent base running with pretty good left field defense to go along with it as well. I don't necessarily love him as a utility guy. Unfortunately, if he had a better center field or right field rating, then I might like him a little bit more. I think that I don't love this card, but I don't hate it either. But I think it's being overrated due to some small sample size stuff right now as well. Brian Reynolds, number 2. Number 1, I don't know who it's going to be. Looks like it's going to be a small sample size, though. Hurley McNair's 1,300 plate appearances, 280 batting average, grading out 2nd defensively and 4th offensively, but looks like it was a pretty good week for McNair. He and Frazier are the only Pirates worth playing, perhaps. Grading out 2nd defensively and left field is McNair, grading out 4th offensively this week, but his offensive numbers are up a little bit from his all-time numbers. A 280 average, 339 on base percentage, 402 slugging, 741 OPS, and a 328 weighted on base average are all a little bit higher than his all-time numbers. Is that something we can expect to stay thanks to the versus righties being so heavy versus righties? I certainly think this card is playable. The 73 contact with 71 gap. You're not going to get a lot of power. But I think it's a playable card. I'm surprised to see it getting as little use as it does. I think people are sold on the Pete Rose. And the Pete Rose is really good. But I don't hate this Hurley McNair card. You're curious on my thoughts on Manny Jimenez. Let's see if we can find one. Manny Jimenez. Pretty bad defensively. Ooh, interesting ratings. Let's see. So you got 80, 67, 51, 35, 89. This card's going to have a pretty solid batting average versus right-handed pitching, I think. Let's see if we compare it to... Where is he at? 84, 71, 89, 86. I don't hate the Manny Jimenez. Let's see what we've got on him. Is Kelenic on my list as left fielder or something else? Not sure. Let's check out Kelenic and see. Not finding him there. I might not have any data on Kelenic. Manny Jimenez. Let's see what we have on him. I got a way lower batting average than I would have expected at 238. 296 on base percentage. It's only 142 plate appearances, so keep that in mind. 346 slugging, 642 OPS, 287 weighted on base average, 55 runs created. The small sample size numbers don't look great on Jimenez right now. I'm curious to see how he's getting used. Those ratings look like they should be better than that. The downside is the speed on him. The speed's super low. But even still, you would think his batting average would be a little bit better than that. So what I feel like is it's going to be a singles guy who's going to clog up your bases just a little bit. And going to be pretty close to unusable versus left-handed pitching, which, whatever. In Silver, there's no left-handed pitching anyway, so I don't know. I could see it being a usable card. The numbers aren't backing that up right now, but again, it's 142 plate appearance sample size. Let's see what I have on Kelenic and see if we can expect to see him anywhere else. I've only got 472 plate appearances on Kelenic right now. He is listed as a right fielder, but he's not going to show up on any of the lists. But a 260 average, 322 on base percentage, 408 slugging, 730 OPS. The numbers don't look bad. 19 home runs for him in a 48. I'm assuming you're talking about the live Jared Kelenic. 48 walks. Strikeouts are a little bit high. WAR at 2, 72 runs created. For Kelenic at 472 plate appearances. So that's a card I am interested in seeing a little bit more of. Not the diamond. Cheap right now. I'm going to grab one just to see if I can't get a little bit more data out of him. He does look like he's better defensively in left field than in center field and right field. Let's see. Let's look at the ratings. Not much of a split. A little bit of a contact split, a little bit of an avoid K split. So splits a little bit versus righties, but not a ton. I think it's a interesting live card as a usable card. So we'll see. We'll take a look at him, and I'll see if I can't plug him in as a left fielder utility guy for us. I'm going to work on the team a little bit this afternoon and try to get a little bit more out of my Silver team than I have been lately because it hasn't been much. Center fielders. Let's get through the center fielders and the right fielders. We're going overtime today. We had 12 qualifying center fielders. 12 was Stan Spence with a little bit of power, grading out 10th defensively, 11th offensively. 11 was Jay Payton, grading out 8th defensively, 8th offensively. For Jay Payton, runs created at 63. The WAR is pretty low for Jay Payton. I have a feeling that that's because he plays some left field as well. Offensively, whatever. Splits versus lefties, which makes him sadly limited in use in the format. I could see him as a left fielder versus lefties, but he's just not going to get enough plate appearances for me to say one thing or another on it. Yeah, he's number 11. Jim Northrup comes in at number 10, grading out 12th defensively out of 12, which makes me not want to use him in center field right off the bat. But he does play some first base, some left field, some center field, some right field, so multiple positions for Northrup. When do you all have time to play more than one level of tourney as well? It's kind of all I do right now. And so I have 4 different teams that I just plug into. So I have one team that does iron, one team that does bronze, one team that does silver, one team that does gold. And so that's how all of them are built, for lack of a better term. I have the main team that is the focus for perfect league and the higher level, the big money tournaments. But the other ones all are basically just for gathering data. And so I build the tournament teams off their perfect points, but the teams get built by packs. So like this team, when we opened the packs today, was all based off of packs that we won in tournaments and whatnot. Northrup splits a little bit versus righties, grading out 3rd offensively among center fielders, but 12th defensively, which is concerning to me. A 35 center field rating is not terribly usable, but he can play some left field and some right field as well, which makes him a little bit interesting to me. He's not on this list. I don't know how many plate appearances he's got as a center fielder, but I'm curious how these numbers stack up among right fielders. Among left fielders, I mean, they look okay. I think this is a usable bat versus right-handed pitching, guys, this Jim Northrup card. for sure. Maybe as a left fielder, maybe as a right fielder. For Northrop. This card is interesting to me. I'm not gonna lie. Not as a center fielder. It's interesting to me as like a left fielder, or even as a first baseman. I would like to see more of this card. I'm gonna plug him in here because I can, just for the sake of remembering that I want to see more of it. Interesting. Number 9 is Harry Bay. Grades out number 9 defensively, number 4 offensively. In batting average, he's second. On base percentage, he's third. 277 and 328 between those two. Number 1 in steals at 60 with 79% stolen base percentage. He is an elite base runner with pretty good splits versus righties. I really like this card as a center fielder. I know the defense is probably a tier down from what we really, really like in center field. But it's an interesting combination of offense and defense in center field to me. I think he's just outside of being a useful center fielder, almost to the point where he's unusable. If this was a right fielder, I'd be all over this card. If he had any ratings in right field, I would be 100, or left field even, I would be 100% all over it. I just feel like I need a little bit more defensively out of my center fielder than you're going to get out of Harry Bay. Number 8 is Jelly Gardner, who's grading out 3rd defensively and 10th offensively. Splits versus righties, pretty heavy splits versus righties for Jelly Gardner. He's a proven winner with 25% of his points percentage, and he is your 5th most used center fielder right now in the format. He's a very batting average on base percentage, but he's very predicated on speed. 2nd in stolen bases per net steals per 600. The stolen base percentage is a little bit low, which tells me people are probably running him a little bit hot on the bases. Maybe tone it down just a little bit so he can be a little bit more selective about his base stealing. And I think you can probably coax a little bit more than an 18 net. Even though his attempts will go down, I think his net will come up for you. Defensively, he's 3rd. He's right outside the top tier of the defensive center fielders, but I think it's a very, very usable card in center field is Jelly Gardner. Number 7 is live Trent Grisham, bringing out 6th defensively and 5th offensively for us. Low batting average at just 2. You like the Jelly Gardner card, decent feeling, good speed. I do like that card a lot. It's one that I've been considering adding to the team for a while. And it's been hard to find for me. It's one I've been wanting to add to the team for a little while. It's just been a little bit hard to find for me. Grisham comes in at number 7, top 5 in all of your rate stats except for batting average. Unfortunately, batting average is, I think, important to a card like this because he doesn't have the speed to be an elite base stealer. So the walk-driven on-base percentage becomes a little bit empty, but he plays multiple outfield positions. He splits slightly versus right-handed pitching, which is good for us in the format. This is another one of those live cards that I think if you're trying to keep your expenditures down, it's a card that you could definitely use in center field. Maybe a little bit more in right field. We might see him in right field. It looks like he might be playing mostly in right field, but he had at least 600 plate appearances as a center fielder to qualify. So grading out well offensively among center fielders. I have a feeling the numbers won't grade out quite as well among right fielders. 2nd tier defensive center fielder. I think he's a really interesting option as a utility outfielder for Trent Grisham. He can play good defense at all 3 outfield positions and play okay offense as well. With a little bit of power there too. I'm going to plug him in as a bench player. I'm really interested in getting a little bit more out of this card. Number 6 is Lorenzo Cain, who's grading out 4th defensively, 7th offensively. The rate stats are a little bit low. 9th in batting average, 8th in on-base percentage. This is live Lorenzo Cain. 309 on-base percentage, 353 slugging, 661 OPS. But plays pretty good center field defense, can play a little bit of right field as well. Where's Grisham? Grisham was 6, 78 range, 49 arm, 74 error. The center field rating pushes him up just a little bit defensively, but offensively, I think Grisham's more interesting as a utility guy. Cain splits versus lefties too, so keep that in mind. Number 5 is Ken Berry, who's grading out number 2 defensively, number 9 offensively in center field. Splits slightly versus righties, which is good, but even still, the offensive ratings are not great. If you're putting him in there, I'm assuming you're putting him in there for his defense, where we'll see what Pache looks like offensively compared to Kemberry. I think Pache is definitely a tier of his own in defense here in center field. Barry is not too far behind. We'll run a comparison when we get there and see what Pache looks like. 364 slugging, 653 OPS, 288 weighted on base average is a little bit sad, but number 1 in WAR among center fielders for Ken Berry. Number 4, there's Pache right there. So let's see, the range is exactly the same. The arm and error are both pretty significantly higher, and the center field rating is a little bit higher too. Pache splits versus lefties, and he's going to be really bad offensively. 12th out of 12 offensively for Pache. So kind of like when you're looking at those catchers, right? If all you want out of your center fielder is defense, then Pache might be the way to go. Offensively, just keep in mind that you're going to get almost nothing out of him offensively. Maybe some home runs here and there. He's 5th among center fielders in home runs with that 53 power and the 78 gap power. The slight split versus lefties obviously has gone down a little bit in his use. He's down to 4th most used in center field for the format over the last couple weeks. 12th in OPS, 12th in weighted on base average. He's just not very good offensively. You like Gardner better than Pache? I agree. I agree that Gardner looks better than Pache on paper. Pache, I don't think Pache stands out defensively quite as much as, say, like the Simmons at shortstop does, or the two defensive catchers do at catcher. I just don't think he stands out as much as them to be as usable as them just off of his defense. I think there's guys who can give you some similar defense that provide you a little bit of offense as well. Number 3 is Mitch Webster, who's grading out 5th defensively and 6th offensively. Top 5 in OPS, weighted on base average, batting average. Can run a little bit, good steals, lower in stolen base percentage, 100 base running ability. He's a very good base runner as well. Slight splits versus lefties. I would go moderate splits versus lefties. You got 19 points of gap. You got 10 points of contact. You got 14 points of avoid Ks. He does play center field and right field, which is nice because you can run him as a straight platoon in center field to get those versus lefties numbers, but he can play multiple positions for you on his day off too. So he's not a straight platoon. This is a card that I kind of like a little bit, but again, similar to like shortstop, third base, all the other positions, I think it's usable if you use it in the right way, but I don't think it's necessarily a must-have. Number 2 is Ketel Marte, who plays center field, shortstop, second base. Grades out 11th defensively in center field, but is grading out number 1 offensively among center fielders over 1,500 plate appearances. When live cards go up and down, none of their stats change, right? No, they do. For sure they do. Meaning up and down between bronze and silver. Their stats definitely change when they go up and down. The defense for Pache, are you talking about or for Pache or Weber, Johnny Balls? Ketel Marte does not grade out as one of the better defensive center fielders. Is he usable in center field? Probably not. With the 70 range, 56 arm, 62 error, 50 center field rating. Is he usable as a utility guy who can back you up in center field and say second base or shortstop? Probably not. He's just bad defensively everywhere you could possibly plug him in. And offensively, 289 average, 335 on base percentage, 12 home runs. It's all gap power, good OPS, good weighted on base average. Sadly, I think that I have to say no to Pache or to Marte. I really, the defense in center field isn't good. I don't love it. Doesn't make up for it with speed, and he's not. While his numbers look good here, I don't think he's significantly better than some of the guys who are going to play good defense. Will he fit in your lineup somehow? Yeah, I think if you do it right, if you set your lineup right, I think he can fit. I don't know that I would be able to. I don't know that I'm a good enough player to make him fit in my lineup for Marte. Number 1 is Jarren Duran. Grading out 7th defensively. I like him a little bit better as a right fielder, but again, he can play the center field, the right field, the second base, the multiple positions. He splits versus righties with a very, very good gap power and a good contact with decent power, good eye, and good avoid case. He's grading out 2nd offensively among center fielder while being able to play pretty okay defense as well over Marte. I love this card, and he might be in Boston soon. You might see a live Jarren Duran pretty soon. He continues to tear the cover off the ball in Worcester. Very, very good. I do love this card. Good power, good speed. Again, you're going to want to tone it down just a little bit on the steals because of the higher speed to steal rating for Duran. And I think if you do that, you can get a little bit better stolen base percentage. If you can get up to about a 70 stolen base percentage by putting him, maybe one tick above like the medium, I think you can probably get him up to about a 70% stolen base percentage, which would put him up to maybe a 14 or 15 steals too. A little bit of power, good on-base skills, good base running, good speed, and good defense to go along with it. I kind of like this card better as a right fielder, and we're probably going to see him on that list too. So let's see how he stacks up there, because he's got 4,000 plate appearances somewhere else. So we're probably going to see him on the right field list as well. Those are your center fielders. Let's hit the right fielders. Leroy Stanton. Let's see. We had 16 qualifiers. Let's just go back and do the bottom ones. Bing Miller at 16. Max Flack at 15. Leon Roberts at 14, proven winner. Tim Salmon at 13. Mike Yastrzemski live at 12. And one-hit wonder Corey Snyder at 11. Heavy splits versus lefties. He was on my one-hit wonder team that did not do very well. We got knocked out. And did anybody do well? Can I compare Duran and Bay really quickly? Sure. There's Bay. No power to speak of. Good base running. Defensively, definitely a step down. Duran's going to be better defensively. Going to have a little bit more power. Bay's going to give you a little bit more on-base percentage, a little bit more speed. Let's see. 2, 1, 333 on-base percentage. And the good average and 12 home runs versus Bay, who is no home runs to speak of, but a much better base runner. So it's kind of, I think either one is usable. I really think either one is usable. I'm going to see what Duran looks like in right field before I make a determination for that. Let's see. Leroy Stanton splits heavy versus lefties. Man, this card would be fun if there were some more lefties in the format. 8th offensively, again, because he's probably getting used as a backup and getting a lot of time versus righties where he's probably going to struggle a little bit. If this was like, if we were even at like 40% lefties, I really think this would be a really cool card in the format. But as it is right now, play some right field, play some left field, 853 plate appearances, struggling a little bit with the bat. Still number 1 in home runs among right fielders, but everything else is a little bit deficient right now just because we just don't see enough left-handed pitching to make this card usable at the moment. Number 9 is Jack Tobin, who, interesting, number 1 offensively among right fielders. This is an interesting looking card to me. Was this a new one? Is this one of the new card dumps? It was not. I don't remember seeing this card before. Only 700 plate appearances. 20 home runs per 600. Second in average, 282. 350 on base percentage, 462 slugging, 811 OPS, 358 weighted on base average. Now, I will say that his all-time numbers are a little bit lower than that. So played up a little bit this week. I don't think this is an unusable offensive card versus righties. I think he's going to be really, really bad versus lefties. Is one of the issues that you'll run into. This is a card that won't hit versus lefties at all. But I think it's a card that could play some DH. The defense is atrocious. I wouldn't play him in right field. But I think he can be playable as a DH, maybe, maybe on the right team. they're really hot still. Uncle. Okay. Sorry, I got my pizza rolls. He put out a stellar offensive week this week, though, and I think this card could be interesting. I'm very interested in seeing more of this card. I'm curious how, man, I want to check something real quick. This is going to be something I don't normally do, but I'm going to check something real quick. We'll do it at the end. We're going to do that at the end. I want to look at Jack Tobin's use because I'm really curious how much of this was before we started leaning super heavy right-handed. Because I really feel like this card can mash right-handed pitching. I really feel like the numbers are going to be closer to this right now. And so I'm curious if a lot of people saw him get used before we started leaning 96% right-handed. Because I know the first month or so, it was closer to like a 70-30 split. And so I'm curious how much of this was Jack Tobin being used early and people giving up on him. He's basically the same versus righties as Kelenic, just better Ks and way worse running. That's fair. The base running is a little bit concerning. Interesting. Interesting. Richburg comes in at number 8. Sorry. Third in average and third in on-base percentage. Sorry about that. 16th in slugging, 12th in OPS, 11th in weighted on-base average, 5th in WAR for Richburg, rating out 7th defensively, 11th offensively right now. Very good batting average on-base skills. Not a great base runner. A little bit lower there. You have him 262, 322, 385, and 700 plate. You think you just ran well in my data. It doesn't hit enough for you. Fair enough. I can see that being a thing too. Yeah, I can see that being a thing too. So you're seeing 20 points lower basically across the board. Fair enough. Richburg, good defense in right field. Only plays right field. Does split versus righties, which is helpful. Grading out 11th offensively, though. Just no power, no speed to speak of. He's a one-trick pony, and that trick is singles and playing a little bit of defense for Richburg. Number 7 is Harold Baines. Grading out, pretty decent splits versus righties. Grading out 14th defensively. Grading out 4th offensively. So decent home runs. Tell him not to steal. He has never successfully stolen a base in our data set. That's not entirely true. Over here, he has 71.43. But over his last 2,200 plate appearances, failed to successfully steal a base. 2nd in on-base percentage, 4th in slugging, 3rd in OPS, 2nd in weighted on-base average. Just not great defensively for Harold Baines. So if you can fit him defensively in right field, potentially a useful offensive card. Otherwise, maybe not. Number 6 is Trent Grisham. Here he is again. I'm really interested in getting more of this guy as a utility outfielder. His numbers offensively are grading out 10th defensively in right field, or offensively in right field. Obviously, a little bit more of a defensive right fielder, whereas against center fielders, his numbers graded more favorably on offense. So, yeah, interesting. We'll see. We saw the same numbers, but he's just 10th offensively among right fielders, and a little bit better defensively for Grisham. Number 5 is Cliff Heathcote, who's grading out number 1 defensively, but last offensively at 35. Let's see, 215 average, 290 on base percentage, 350 slugging, 57 slugging, 647 OPS, 290 weighted on base average. Those numbers were bad over the last 3,500 plate appearances for Heathcote, and I think I've moved on from him. That's sad. I used him for a while. I think I took him out of the lineup recently. I don't think he's in there anymore. Yeah, for sure. We moved on from Heathcote recently, and a lot of it was because of the deficient offense. Number 4 is Alexis Rios finally finds his way up the list a little bit. So Rios is a card that I've been wanting to be a really good card for a while. He's always kind of hovered around that 8 to 10 range. All right. I'm a little bit hungry right now. But this week, Alexis Rios finally put on the show I've been waiting for since the card dropped. 290 average, 325 on base percentage, 460 slugging, 785 OPS, 342 weighted on base average, grading out third offensively among right fielders. He grades out 12th defensively, which is a little bit sad. Can he be used as a designated hitter? I think so. Versus lefties for sure. And he may have been hidden versus lefties. I don't know. But for whatever reason, his numbers all got a little bit better this week than they have been in the past. And he's finally showing up in the top 5. Solid base running this week. 25 steals per 600 with a 70% stolen base percentage. Still not walking at all. The eye is still a little bit low for Alexis Rios. But finally put up some good numbers. You're probably going to see somewhere in between these numbers if you run him. He's your second most used this week, most used all time. Number 3 is Doc Miller coming in. Your 9th most used this week. Coming in 10th defensively and 5th offensively for Doc Miller. 5th in average, 319 on base percentage, 445 slugging, 764 OPS, 336 weighted on base average for him. 3rd in WAR among right fielders, grading out at number 3 overall. Good base running. 27 steals with a 75% stolen base percentage. Strikes out a little bit more than I would like and doesn't really walk at all. So he's like a little bit... Man, bad timing. A little bit worse offensively than Rios, but a little bit better defensively than Rios for Doc Miller. Wait for it to catch up. Phil has not been happy with me today. Let's see. So 3rd offensively, yeah, that's where I'd put him. Number 2 is Jarren Duran, who's grading out 6th offensively and 6th defensively in right field. I think I like the fact that his offense plays up in center field to the point that I think I like him better as a center fielder. I don't know where I'm playing him right now. He's playing as my backup center fielder to Ken Berry right now, is where Jarren Duran is. I think we might start Jarren Duran. So his offense plays down just a little bit in right field. His defense is 6th in right field. He is number 2 in WAR, but again, keep in mind that he gets some of that from playing center field, so that's why he's up a little bit high. I actually think I prefer Duran as a center fielder based off of what I'm seeing this week, and I think we might make him my starter in center field over Ken Berry. Worth the thought. Number 1, Ducky Holmes remains number 1, and I think will likely remain number 1 as we, stick towards 96% right-handed pitching. This is a guy who just hits really well against right-handed pitching and can also run. So 332 on base percentage, 5th in slugging OPS, weighted on base average as well. Plays some defense, good range, good right field rating. The arm's a little bit low, but with that kind of range and that kind of right field rating, we can kind of live with it. Solid numbers versus right-handed pitching. 26% of his points. He is a proven winner in right field, and your number 1 most used over this reporting period as well. So keep that in mind. You're getting what you're going to see out of him. Solid batting average, solid on base percentage, solid slugging, good OPS, good weighted on base average, with goodish defense in right field and really, really good base running. I think Ducky Holmes is one of the few cards in the entire set where I really, really think that he earns the number 1 position here in right field. I really, really like this card as a right fielder. So he's one of the few cards in silver that gets a firm stamp of approval for me. I think that there are other cards that are usable as well. The Rios I think could be usable. Heathcote if you're going all in on defense. Grisham is a utility guy. Baines can be a useful player, I guess, in right field. I know he's a little deficient defensively, but again, not too many people running really bad defense out there. So even though he's 14th out of 16, I don't think the defense is completely unusable in right field. Richburg, I'm interested in Tobin, but again, seeing the all-time numbers there, makes me a little bit more hesitant. Anything on Brian Giles? Let's find out. Nothing. Not even a plate appearance on Giles. See if we've got him in here. Not even a plate appearance. Let's see if we can find him. '64, '68, '61, '68. Kind of splits versus righties. I don't know that that's an unusable bat versus righties. The defense is not good. Pretty bad defense in right field. I think he'd have to be a designated hitter, and I don't know that those match up against some of the better hitters in the format either. So I think that's why you're not seeing him get used. If he played right field, maybe he'd be usable, but I think there's just too many better hitters in the format that make him not a guy that you're going to see too often. The hold runners on Giles. Yeah, I mean, he's got a heck of a pickoff move, I guess. And a good slide step as well, so doesn't lose too much on his 2 stuff, 25 movement, 1 control when he's quick pitching or going with the slide step to home plate. Is an extreme fly ball pitcher, so keep that in mind. With a 25 movement and an extreme fly ball pitcher, he's probably going to have some home run issues. And only throws a fastball that's rated at 10 between 83 and 85 miles an hour. So I really think that you might want to hide him, avoid high leverage with Brian Giles, the pitcher. But, you know, maybe his inherited runner percentage will be pretty good. Those were your batters, guys. Let's move on to the pitchers. We had 34 qualifying pitchers. We'll do the top 15 and then quickly go back through the rest of them. I have one more pizza roll. Now I'm going to eat. I'm going to go grab a soda real quick. Secret anti-nameless poet tech. I like it. Bonham's 15. I'm so sick of this card. Let's just move on from it. So instead of him being number 15, Freddie Peralta is going to be number 15, which I don't like this card that much either. I did go back to rating by earned run average this week, so keep that in mind. You'll see the ratings by ERA instead of by FIP this week, going by results. I've gotten feedback both ways. There's some people who like it by ERA, some people who like it by FIP. I might go back to starting to do like some formula or something in the near future. I'm hoping to get some work in this week on making this even a little bit better. Peralta comes in at number 16 with a 419 earned run average. Keep in mind his FIP is at 458, which is 31st out of 34. I do not love this card. 62% start percentage, 439 innings pitched per game. It's a low stamina for Silver. He's got heavy splits. I could see it being a useful specialist out of the bullpen. I do not like this live Freddie Peralta as a starting pitcher here in Silver. He started off as a bronze, didn't he? He must be having a pretty solid season to move up from a bronze all the way to a silver. Bill Bonham, good stuff, good movement. It's a useful card. It's a usable card, even at this level. 414 earned run average, 412 FIP. The 29 stamina, I think that with a 413 innings pitched per game, I think he's more useful out of the bullpen here in Silver than as a starting pitcher. You can see all time he gets used more as a relief pitcher, less than 4 innings pitched per game all time. Right at the 4 innings pitched per game cutoff for Bill Bonham. No splits to speak of. I really do still think it's usable here. I like it more out of the pen than as a starter. Number 14 is Henry McHenry, who's a lower stuff, good movement, decent movement, very good control pitcher, especially against right-handed pitching. He's number 5 in walks per 9 and top 10 in whip. 413 earned run average for him, 422 FIP for Henry McHenry, however. A 101 stamina for him, 58 hold runners. I think that he's a perfectly viable card for the format. People are getting over 6 innings pitched per game out of him right now with that 413 earned run average and 422 FIP, which is solid. He's the kind of guy who you can tuck in as your number 4 starter, 7 to pull slowly, give him 105, 110 pitch count, and maybe save your bullpen a little bit, or even as like a number 5, that number 5 starter. If you have your rotation set to always pitch highest rested, then he'll pitch when the rounds get a little bit longer for you, and he can save your bullpen just a little bit if you're running some of those lower stamina guys high up. I think it's a usable card in the format. Very, very good stamina for Henry McHenry. Number 13 is Dane Dunning, future legend Dane Dunning. Splits versus righties, moderate splits versus righties, so we're looking at, it'd be 50-50 or so, righties versus lefties for him, as far as, the switch hitters obviously are going to bat lefty. Let's see. Good stuff. Decent movement, good control. He's top 10 in strikeouts per 9, 23rd in home runs, so they might be an issue. And the combination of home runs and walks is a little bit concerning, but somehow he's still putting up a 1.295 whip, which is top 10 for Dane Dunning. 407 ERA, 419 FIP, which is 16th. Continues to look like a pretty solid starting pitcher here in silver. Number 12 doesn't exist. Interesting. There is no number 12. I know why. I forgot to fix the dumb thing again. That's not what I want. Because number 12 is this one. Number 12 is our average, sadly. I messed that up. So I need to write that down. Fix pitcher rankings. Fix quality control, guys. Quality control. Number 11 is Tom Glavine. Build a legend, Tom Glavine. 404 earned run average, 419 FIP for him. Strikeouts are super low, 26th out of 34, 4.83. Home runs per 9 are pretty low as well, or pretty bad as well at 0.81. Top 10 in walks at 2.4. 16th in whip. I'm not enamored by it, but I'm a little surprised to see the home runs as bad as they are. I like this card, even though he's got a high stamina. I kind of like him better out of the pen because you can run him as a specialist. I think he'd be better as a specialist versus lefties. But again, it's going to be almost 50-50 here because the lefties are gonna, the lefties are gonna hit righty. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. It's gonna be closer to a 69-31 split. Righties versus lefties with Glavine on the mound since he's left-handed. And so one of the few left-handers getting used. So he's got that going for him at a 404 earned run average and a 419 FIP. So he's pitching well. But you kind of get what you get with him. He's got pretty heavy splits versus left-handed batters. Number 10 is Double Duty Radcliffe. Splits versus righties. Pretty heavy stuff. 6 points of stuff, 2 points of movement, 3 points of control. Top 10 in earned run average at 4.03. Number 2 in FIP at 3.64. Top 5 almost in home run suppression. 3.02 walks per 9. 6.4 strikeouts. And 25th in whip for him. So he's going to let runners on base, but there's not going to be a lot of home runs. And, he'll work around it. You're going to want good defense around him, I think, though. Even with that, because he's not going to strike out a ton of guys, and you're going to have guys on base as well. The walks are a little bit of an issue for Double Duty Radcliffe. 4.2 innings pitched per game, which seems a little low for a guy with 90 stamina to me. And an emergency third catcher. Fair. That's a fair point for Double Duty Radcliffe. Proven winner Saul Rajavan comes in at number 9. This is a guy I've had my eye on for a little bit, and he's been a proven winner for a little bit. He's been kind of outside the top 10. This week it was a 394 earned run average and a 405 FIP. So they kind of flipped. You can see he was a 391 FIP before with a 4 earned run average. 80 stamina, putting up 5.6 innings pitched per game. So solid there. Top half And walk suppression, we have, what, 34? So yeah, right in the top half of walk suppression. Top 10 in home run suppression. Not going to strike too many guys out. Again, one of those guys with the good movement, good control, who you're going to want good defense behind. Which you can certainly do here in silver. But you're definitely going to want good defense behind Saul Rajavin, especially outfield defense since he's a fly ball pitcher. So he is at number 9. Number 8 is Build a Legend Mike Mussina. 393 earned run average, 408 FIP. The FIP is up. The earned run average is down from his all-time numbers by basically 0.2 of a point. He comes in at number 8, though, by earned run average. 15th in strikeouts, 25th in home runs, 11th in walks per 9 innings, and 15th in whip for Mike Mussina. Splits versus righties. 75 stuff, 57 movement, 74 control. I would call it slight to moderate split versus righties. He can be effective versus lefties as well, though. 4.5 innings pitched per game for Mussina, so a little bit less than some of the other guys you see. Also, he's at a 60% start percentage right now. So a lot of people using him out of the bullpen, I think they see the moderate stuff split here and think, oh, he's got to be a specialist. But Mussina continues to be okay at getting it done. Number 7 is live Zach Gallen. Interesting. 393 earned run average this week for him. 429 FIP is not great. It's 25th out of 34, but somebody's putting good defense behind him. Good strikeouts, top 5 in strikeouts. 30th in home run suppression, though. Lots of home runs, almost a home run per 9 innings against Zach Gallen. And a 3.39 walks per 9 innings is a little bit concerning as well. Top 3 in whip, which is interesting. And has kept all of the inherited runners from scoring. 85% start percentage for him, so it's not a lot of relief appearances for him, but solid stuff for Zach Gallen.